Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
In the beginning, Kantori didn't quite understand it, but he soon came up with an explanation. He thought Harquis probably wanted to record the Mageth, and then use it as evidence against Lin Li in the future. However, no one expected that the memory crystal in the Mageth above would emit a cracking sound all of a sudden as it immediately cracked before exploding entirely. The information contained in the Mageth had already exceeded the storage limit of the memory crystal. That just showed that the level of the Mageth was probably far greater than Harquis expected. The memory crystal did not save the image of the Mageth, and instead exploded in an unbelievable manner. Of course, Kantori didn't think that it was caused by the Mageth, but rather he felt that it might have been caused by Harquis' operational error in a moment of anger. However, Kantori could not state it explicitly, and merely persuaded, "Harquis, there's actually no need to record that information, we just need to get a few people to bear witness, and it'll completely count as evidence." Hearing Kantori's words, Harquis' eyes lit up, but he did not leave the Mageth there for others to keep an eye on it. Instead, he cast his 8 arms magic spell, and the 8 magic arms began to revolve around the Mageth and blast towards the surroundings. Soon, a deep pit was formed in the ground below the Mageth. Immediately afterwards, the 8 magic arms landed on the edge, and with a massive sound, they actually lifted up the entire ground that Mageth was on. "Kantori, excuse me, I have to go back to handle something urgent. I'll get going now." After saying that, Harquis did not wait for Kantori to reply to him as he simply propped himself up against the ground using those 8 arms. He propelled into the sky and flew swiftly in a certain direction. Watching Harquis leave, Kantori finally smiled. In his opinion, the Octopus clan would definitely form a feud with the Tower of Dusk. On the other hand, Harquis flew all the way to a large lake near Hupper City, while holding the large stone slab in hand. There was a large and luxurious palace in the center of the lake, where there was a mass of large shadows in the water. Clearly, the building under the surface of the water was even more majestic. The palace was the Tide Palace of the Octopus clan, and could also be considered the Octopus clan embassy in the Gilded Kingdom. Although the Sea clan could move on land, the environment in the water was obviously more comfortable for them. That was the reason that the Sea clan preferred to stay in their palace built in the lake, unlike the emissaries of other forces or nations who chose to live in the embassies provided by the Gilded Kingdom. Hence, the Octopus clan was not the only one that had a palace like the Tide Palace. There were a few other powerful sea clans that also had similar palaces. Anyway, even if there wasn't a natural lake available, they had the strength and ability to dig up a large lake. Hence, the capital of the Gilded Kingdom, Hupper City, was surrounded by dozens of lakes of various sizes, which seemed to form a unique landscape. Harquis landed on the platform of the Tide Palace like a meteor, and 2 Octopus clan guards immediately greeted him. When they saw the stone slab that Harquis was holding up, the 2 guards couldn't help but be astonished, but they quickly suppressed it and went forward to salute him with great respect. "Greetings, Lord." Harquis acknowledged them with a nod. After flying, his mood had gradually calmed down a little. Immediately afterwards, he asked, "Have the great monarch and the elders returned yet?" "What are they doing now, Lord?" "The great monarch and the elders have just returned from the Red Sea Palace. They shouldn't have gone to rest yet," an Octopus clan guard answered respectfully. Like the Tide Palace of the Octopus clan, the Red Sea Palace was the palace of the Giant Shark clan, which was another large clan of the Sea clan in the Gilded Kingdom. The Octopus clan was famous for their knowledge and expertise in inscriptions, while the Giant Shark clan dominated with their strong combat power, especially the elite Giant Shark clan knights, whose combat prowess was simply invincible in the endless ocean. When Harquis went to look for Kantori, his father, the great monarch Hegel, and a few elders had gone to visit the Red Sea Palace of the Giant Shark clan. As soon as Harquis returned, he asked if his father and the elders had returned. He was so anxious that he didn't want to wait any longer. After hearing the guards say that father and others had returned, Harquis immediately held up the large stone slab and darted towards the Tide Palace without any delay. Although the Tide Palace was large, Harquis was eager and desperate as he flew almost without stopping towards the palace that his father resided in while holding up the stone slab. If not for the fact that the guards in the palace knew who Harquis was, they would have probably thought that someone was there to wreck the palace because there was no reason to hold up such a large slab of stone. Arriving at the door of his father's palace, Harquis said to the guards at the door, "Go in and tell them that I have an urgent matter to see the great monarch for." Although Harquis would at most only be chided a few times by his father if he went in directly without notice because of his father's love towards him, his father Hegel, the great monarch of the Octopus clan, was not the only one present this time. There was also an existence that he was very afraid of. Even his father Hegel had to be respectful to the other party. After going in to inform them of Harquis' arrival, the guard soon came out and said to Harquis, "The great monarch has asked you to enter." However, before he could finish his words, he felt a gust of wind blowing in front of him as Harquis vanished without a trace. By the time Harquis arrived at the palace, he saw the great monarch of the Octopus clan, Hegel, sitting at a table and flipping through the inscription notes of his ancestor. Hearing the sound of Harquis entering, and without even turning around to look at him, Hegel indifferently said, "Didn't you go on a tour with Cantori? What is the urgent matter that you're here to see me for?" "Father, there is an urgent matter. I've brought something here, please have a look at it," Harquis said while placing the stone slab heavily on the ground in the middle of the palace. Although the stone slab was not very heavy, he had used the 8 magic arms to carry it all the way over to the palace. Hence, it had been quite a considerable burden for him. Besides, he had previously already depleted a great amount of his mental strength, making it quite a taxing task for him to hold up until now. Hearing the sound of the slab hitting the ground, great monarch Hegel then shifted his attention away from the notes and turned to look at his son. Seeing the slab on the ground, he couldn't help but frown slightly and said, "What is this? It looks pretty new too. You didn't get duped by the scheming human merchants again, did you?" Hegel did not see the mageth on the stone slab. It was not that he had bad eyesight, but rather that Harquis placed it in the wrong direction. Hegel naturally didn't expect his son to have dislodged the stone slab of a store on the street. The slab was decades old, so he thought that a sly human merchant had sold it to his son as a fake relic. "No, father, this is..." Harquis finally caught his breath and realized that he had placed the slab with the wrong side up. With a bitter smile, he then said, "Father, please look at the other side. I don't have the strength to turn it over now, so..." Hegel finally realized that his son was exhausted, and the fluctuations of his mental strength had also weakened. It was as if he had just experienced an intense life and death battle. He quickly asked, "Whom did you fight with? Was it the punk of the Thunder Eel clan?" The Thunder Eel clan was another dominant sea clan. Unlike the Giant Shark clan, the Thunder Eel clan was considered the mages of the Sea clan as they had the magic talent to manipulate lightning. There was also the most contact between the Thunder Eel clan and the Octopus clan due to the fact that they were connected by sea. The Octopus clan had produced a genius, Harquis, but the Thunder Eel clan was not inferior. There was a genius named Manson who was similar to Harquis, but he had already reached the sanctuary realm. Geniuses tended to compete with each other. Despite the good relationship between the Octopus clan and the Thunder Eel clan, Harquis and Manson, the respective geniuses of the two clans, would fight almost as soon as they saw each other. Hearing his father's words, Harquis smiled bitterly and said, "Father, it's not Manson. Please look at the other side of that stone slab." Seeing that his son had insisted that he look at the stone slab, Harquis didn't say anything else and simply waved his hand with a look of suspicion to turn the stone slab over. Initially, Hegel also thought that nothing remarkable would come out of such an ordinary stone slab, but when he really saw the mageth on the stone slab, he immediately became as shocked as Harquis was at first as he got immersed in it. Seeing that his father had begun to study that mageth, Harquis was full of expectations. As the great monarch of the Octopus clan, Hegel's attainments in inscription were naturally not what Harquis could compare to, and the former's mental strength was also greater. Therefore, in Harquis' opinion, although this mageth had stumped him, his father would definitely be able to figure it out. However, as the time passed, Hegel still hadn't come out of that state, decreasing Harquis' expectations by the minute. At the same time, panic also arose within Harquis' heart. If his father couldn't figure it out, either, how terrifying must the inscription attainments of the human Flick be? 10 minutes passed very quickly, and Hegel finally humped coldly before stumbling backwards with a pale face. Harquis came to a sudden realization, and hurriedly went forth to hold his father. "Father, this mageth..." Hegel slowed down a little, regained his balance, and then said to Harquis, "Harquis, where did you get this mageth from? I can tell that you drew this mageth, but why has it gone beyond your realm?" Hegel naturally saw the traces of his son's drawing on the mageth on the stone slab a long time ago. Hence, at the beginning, he thought that Harquis had gotten a breakthrough, and thus brought the mageth over to let Hegel evaluate it. However, after he started his scrutiny, he discovered that the level of the mageth was far from what his son could draw. Not daring to hide the truth, Harquis told his father everything about how he and Cantori met Lin Li at the market, and then asked to compete with Lin Li in inscription. Of course, he didn't say that he had taken the initiative to provoke Lin Li, and instead said that he just wanted to spar with Lin Li because he could tell that Lin Li was good at inscription. After speaking, Harquis could not help but further ask, "Father, please look at this mageth." What level is it at? Why did Fulik cause such a huge change in my Magath after just sprinkling some ink on it? However, after hearing his son's question, Hegel had no choice but to shake his head with a bitter smile, and said, I think we should consult Elder Guido and Elder Khazar about this Magath. Maybe they can tell some of the mystery within it. Harquis was dumbfounded. The main thing was that his father said that maybe the elders might be able to tell what the Magath was. In that case, what level is the Magath at? And how did Fulik create such a terrifying Magath just by splashing some ink onto it? While Harquis was spacing out, Hegel did not delay, and immediately asked someone to invite the two elders Guido and Khazar to come over. By the time Harquis came back to his senses, the two elders were already in front of the stone slab. However, just like Hegel, the two elders got engrossed in studying the Magath for 10 minutes, but they snapped out of it at the same time, both looking extremely exhausted. Great monarch, I think we'd better ask Elder Hayes to come over. This Magath is simply not something we can figure out, Elder Guido said with a bitter expression. He had already heard about the origin of this stone slab, and the thought of the fact that he had been stumped by a human inscriber even though the Octopus clan was famous for inscriptions made him have an ominous feeling. Elder Khazar, who was at the side, sighed. However, I reckon that even Elder Hayes might not be able to figure this out. According to my experience, I'm afraid the level of this Magath is at the peak of the Guru level. What? Peak of the Guru level? Harquis was in disbelief. That human mage is so young. How can he be a guru of inscription? The Octopus clan had long lifespans, with the average being 1,000 years. Being more than 300 years old, Harquis was considered a young man, and he had also studied inscriptions for more than 200 years. With Harquist's talent, reaching the level of a master of inscription in 200 years was a rare feat. He was considered a genius. Yet, the human inscriber actually managed to reach the guru level in his early 20s, which was terrifying. Even if he had started learning inscriptions as a fetus, he would have only studied it for 20-odd years. How terrifying must his talent be? The four people who had been stumped by the Magath dared not look at it again, because their gazes would be attracted to it as soon as they looked at it. With their current mental strength, they could no longer withstand the terrifying depletion. If it was just ordinary people, they might not be able to read it, but the Octopus clan was good at inscription by nature. Hence, the attraction of such a profound Magath seemed to penetrate to the depths of their souls, and make them suffer greater damage. Soon, the Grand Elder of the Octopus clan, Hayes, finally arrived while the four of them waited expectantly. The four looked extremely haggard, and they were immediately frightened. Except for Harquis, the other three were all sanctuary powerhouses. What exactly happened that made them end up looking so worn out and haggard? When the four of them saw Hayes, they hurriedly perked up and saluted him in unison. In the entire Octopus clan, there was probably no one more prestigious than Grand Elder Hayes. In fact, even Great Monarch Hegel had to salute him, as a junior. Hayes was about to ask the four of them about the situation, but the stone slab on the ground suddenly caught his eye. Just like how the four of them reacted just now, his attention was also instantly attracted to the Magath as he became completely immersed in studying it. However, after just a few minutes, Hayes snapped out of that state, and was far less disheveled than the four of them. Clearly, Hayes didn't expend all his mental strength on the Magath like the four of them had. Looking at the state that Hayes was in, the four of them were immediately overjoyed, and Great Monarch Hegel eagerly asked, Grand Elder, how is it? Have you figured out this Magath? While Hegel was asking the question, the other three were also full of expectation, waiting for Grand Elder Hayes to nod his head. In their opinion, as the person with the highest inscription attainment in the Octopus clan, Grand Elder Hayes had to be able to decipher this Magath, otherwise this Magath should not even be something that existed in this world. However, amidst their expectant gazes, Grand Elder Hayes slowly shook his head, and said, No, I can't decipher this Magath. Its structure and laws have vaguely touched the divine smith level, and that is the power of the gods. Grand Elder Hayes' words were like a bolt of lightning that struck their souls, leaving them completely dumbfounded for a moment. They felt that the Magath was very profound, but they didn't expect that they had underestimated it by countless times, compared to Grand Elder Hayes' evaluation. Even though Elder Hayes' attainments and inscription were already unparalleled in the Octopus clan, Hegel and the other four people still couldn't believe it. An existence near the divine smith level was simply a mythical existence. In thousands of years of the history of the Octopus clan, there had never been anyone who reached the divine smith level. Yet, a human in his early 20s actually managed to reach that level. Although Harquis was astonished, he felt that it was all too surreal. Hence, he mustered the courage to say, Grand Elder, I was the one who drew the base of this Magath and it's only at the master level. That human called Fulik merely splashed some ink at it. How could it have become like what you mentioned? Indeed, if it was a carefully drawn Magath, it would still more or less seem plausible to say that it was near the divine smith level. However, it was originally a master level Mageth drawn by Harquis, and it was quite unbelievable to claim that it reached the peak of the divine smith level, just because Lin Li splashed some ink onto it. Hearing Harquis' words, Great Monarch Hegel and the other two elders were also stunned as they finally realized that they had been so preoccupied with that Mageth that they had forgotten that the way that Mageth was formed was even more unbelievable. As inscribers, they all knew how much effort it took to draw a Mageth. However, according to Harquis, that human actually just splashed a bottle of ink onto it and made it reach the divine smith level. That was simply more mythical than myth. However, Hayes slightly shook his head. He didn't get angry because of the crowd's doubts either. Instead, he looked into the distance and, after a moment of contemplation, said, "It's not your fault, it's just that you guys haven't reached that level yet, so you cannot understand what kind of realm that is." Hayes' words immediately aroused the curiosity of the four people. Although Hegel and the two elders were already experienced masters of inscription, they were still far from the peak of the master level Hayes was at. Besides, in addition to his profound knowledge and attainment in inscription, another reason that Hayes could become the Grand Elder of the Octopus Clan was because of his age. Not to mention the Octopus Clan, even in the entire Sea Clan of the Endless Ocean, there were probably very few who could compare to him. The entire Dark Age was probably just a fragment of his life. Hegel couldn't help but ask, "Grand Elder, what kind of realm is that? What kind of realm is that?" Hayes muttered, as if he was speaking to himself. He then turned to look at Hegel and the others with a bitter smile on his face. "That's a realm that I can't even touch. However, there was a supreme genius in my clan thousands of years ago. He might be the only one who has reached that realm." Hearing these words, Hegel and others could not help but turn pale. Although Hayes didn't state explicitly who the genius was, they were familiar with that legend, and thus thought of a person immediately. It was Heldanos, who was known as the Legend of the Octopus Clan, and was originally from a poor family of the lowest class. However, he had an enviable talent and inscription that the rest of the Octopus Clan was jealous of. It was said that he had already become a master of inscription when he was more than 100 years old, which was considered young to the Octopus Clan. More than 200 years later, he entered the Guru level, and eventually reached an unprecedented stage. It was not exaggerated to call it unprecedented at all, as it was an evaluation that Grand Elder Hayes made after exchanging some inscription knowledge with Heldanos. At least in the Octopus Clan, there was no other person who would be qualified to make such an evaluation. No one knew what kind of realm it was. They only knew that Heldanos faced tens of thousands of giant shark clan knights during the Great Ocean Battle that swept across the Endless Ocean. During that battle, Heldanos casually drew a Mageth that caused an upheaval on the ocean. Under the power of that Mageth, tens of thousands of giant shark knights instantly exploded into powder, while the entire ocean was stained red by blood. There was also a large, bottomless trench on the seabed. The trench was still emitting extremely terrifying mana fluctuations, and it became a barrier that the foreign enemies of the Octopus Clan could not overcome easily. Afterwards, there were people who wanted to study the Mageth that Heldanos had drawn in order to find out what it was. But to Evrion's disappointment, that Mageth was contrary to the laws of inscription in all aspects, and it almost couldn't be considered a Mageth, as it was just like a random freehand drawing. However, it was the very thing that made their souls tremble, and even feel like they had seen the arrival of a god. However, after the end of that war, Heldanos left the waters of the Octopus Clan, and no one knew his whereabouts since then. Of course, in the legend of the Octopus Clan, Heldanos should have reached the level of the Divine Smith, and become the only one Divine Smith inscriber of the Octopus Clan. Could it be that that human inscriber has really reached the terrifying realm? At the thought of his previous provocation, Harquis' expression turned pale. It was truly embarrassing for him. In the face of a powerful human inscriber, he actually had the cheek to call himself a genius in inscription. It's both within and beyond the laws. Even if it's not as good as Heldanos' Mageth, I'm afraid it's not far off, Hayes said while gazing at the Mageth on the stone slab. He was actually just as astonished as the rest. He had seen Heldanos, so Heldanos' power might be a legend for others, but he had had a personal experience with it. After Heldanos, no one of our clan has ever been able to reach that realm. I didn't expect a young human inscriber to have reached it, said Grand Elder Harquis. At this point, Hegel had no choice but to trust Harquis' judgment regardless of how unbelievable it seemed. After making some remarks about Lin Li's inscription attainments, he then remembered one more thing, and turned to look at his son Harquis. He sternly questioned, "Harquis, tell me honestly, what exactly happened? Don't hide anything, or I'll never forgive you if I find out." Harquis was taken aback, and wanted to stick to his original story, but when he saw the austerity on the faces of his father and the three elders. He had no choice but to tell the truth. Father, here's what happened. Kantori and I were just casually shopping at the Gift of the Sea, and Kantori chanced upon the blood of the sea god in a store. Initially, I could have given him some if he wanted, but he was probably too embarrassed to ask for it, so he wanted to buy some from the store himself. However, the human inscriber named Fulik also happened to be interested in the blood of the sea god that was available at the store we went to. Hence, both of them started arguing. As soon as Hegel and the three elders, who were esteemed figures, heard this, they knew that this matter could not be as simple as that. Hegel hummed coldly and said, "That kid Kantori probably knows that human inscriber named Fulik, doesn't he?" Harquis wasn't a fool, either. He had merely belittled Lin Li the human inscriber at first. Later on, all his attention was drawn to the Mageth, hence, he didn't think much of it. However, after hearing his father's words, he suddenly thought of the matter again, and figured that there had to be something amiss about it. Harquis had known Kantori for more than a year or two, and their relationship could be considered close. Hence, he was clear that Kantori wasn't quite interested in inscription. Besides, the blood of the sea god was a material that would be used only in advanced Mageths. What would Kantori need it for? Seeing Harquis' reaction, Hegel and others knew what was going on even if he didn't answer explicitly. To put it nicely, Kantori wanted Harquis to stand up for himself, but to put it bluntly, Kantori was just making use of Harquis. However, Kantori was the disciple of the Lord of the Illuminati. Otherwise, Hegel would have nabbed him and taught him a lesson for making use of his son. Hegel would never allow that. "Do you know the origin of that human inscriber?" asked Grand Elder Hayes, who did not bother to mention the matter of Kantori, but asked about the information about Lin Li. After all, Harquis was still young, and there were many things that he had to experience on his own. If he merely listened to the accounts of others, the effects might not be ideal. Seeing that Harquis didn't berate him, and instead asked about the human inscriber, Harquis finally felt relieved. He carefully tried to recall what happened. Although his attention was drawn to the Mageth at that time, he could more or less recall what Kantori said when he was beside him. According to what Kantori said, that human inscriber should be called Fulik, and seems to be the president of a force called Tower of Dusk from the Breezy Plains. In addition, the Gilded Kingdom seemed to have suffered some losses because of him, but King Bradler did not pursue the matter against him. After a long time, that was all Harquis could recall. Although Harquis' words were unclear, Hegel and others looked at each other after hearing the words, Fulik, and the Tower of Dusk with strange expressions on their faces. "Great monarch, is that Fulik that Harquis mentioned the same one we heard about out there?" Elder Quito said to Hegel and others. Although he seemed to be inquiring, his tone was somewhat firm. However, Harquis was puzzled, and he wondered, why do father and the three elders seem to have heard of that human inscriber named Fulik? Why am I the only one who doesn't know anything? Seeing that the several elders seemed to have no intention to reprimand him, he bravely asked, "Father, do you know that human named Fulik?" Hegel shook his head with a faint smile, and said, "I don't know him, but that Fulik has become quite famous in the Gilded Kingdom recently. I'm afraid no one doesn't know that the Gilded Kingdom has suffered a huge loss because of him." Lin Li first destroyed the Gilded Kingdom's first fleet, and then the barracks of the royal guards. The losses in those two incidents were not small at all. Even if the Gilded Kingdom wanted to conceal them, it was impossible for them not to spread a word about it. Besides, the Octopus clan and the other hegemons of the sea were not any weaker than the Gilded Kingdom. It wouldn't take much effort to find out about that matter. Soon, the embarrassing events of the Gilded Kingdom made them a laughingstock that everyone gossiped about. However, at this juncture, Hegel and the others could not bring themselves to laugh when looking at the Mageth on the stone slab. They seemed to have guessed why the Gilded Kingdom repeatedly showed weakness and refused to retaliate even after being attacked blatantly. Lin Li was a guru of inscription who was in the realm of the divine smith. Even the Octopus clan dared not provoke him, let alone the Gilded Kingdom, which wasn't proficient in inscriptions. At this point, Hegel and the others exchanged glances with each other, while Grand Elder Hayes looked at Harquis with a solemn expression. In an austere voice, he admonished, "Harquis, this time you should be thankful that things didn't escalate to the point of being unmanageable, and that Master Fulik didn't intend to hold it against you. However, you can't think that this matter is over just because he didn't do anything to you. You should now find an opportunity to apologize to him, and express your sincerity clearly." "What? You want me to apologize to him?" Harquis exclaimed immediately with a look of reluctance, after hearing his words. It wasn't that he had a grudge against Lin Li, but rather that he felt that it was too embarrassing when he thought of the previous provocation. "Why? Are you not willing? You must know that as long as you can learn a single bit of knowledge in inscription from him, it will probably be useful for you for the rest of our life. This is a rare opportunity for you, and for us, the Octopus clan. It's also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hayes glowered at Harquis, making him lower his head. While seemingly recalling something, Hayes calmly said, "If I hadn't had the opportunity to consult Heldanos about inscription back then, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to reach the level that I'm at now." During that exchange of knowledge with Heldanos, I gained a fair bit of insight that even till now is like a bright lamp that's showing me the way forward. Everyone was shocked to hear Grand Elder Hayes' words, as it could be considered a historical secret in the legend that they had always been told. Hayes and Heldanos exchanged a fair amount of knowledge on inscriptions, which meant that their levels and profoundness were about the same. Even though there might be some disparity between them, it wasn't a great difference. However, consulting meant an entirely different thing altogether. It meant that Heldanos' attainment in inscription was high enough for him to be Hayes' teacher. Hayes sighed slightly. In a somewhat regretful tone, he said to Harquis, "Unfortunately, my talent is limited, and I'm not destined to make greater achievements. However, you're different. You're the most talented person in the history of our octopus clan apart from Heldanos. As long as you seize this opportunity, I believe you will go farther than us." Although Hayes had painted a beautiful picture, Harquis was actually very conflicted deep down. On the one hand, he had understood that there was a conflict between that human inscriber and his close friend Cantori. Hence, for the sake of achieving this somewhat unrealistic goal, he ought to keep a distance from Cantori. On the other hand, the human inscriber Fulik was way too young, as he was only in his early 20s, and it would be too embarrassing to bow down to such a young man. However, even though he was stuck in a dilemma, Harquis dared not disobey Grand Elder Hayes. No matter what, he would just agree first. Hence, he hurriedly lowered his head and said to Hayes, "Yes, Grand Elder, I know." "I hope you really do," said Hayes, who also knew that he could not be too eager about urging Harquis, the genius of the clan, to suddenly bow down to a young human. Hence, he didn't dwell on it, and simply said to Hegel and the other two elders, "Not only Harquis, but you guys as well. Try to poach Master Fulik, and get him to stand on our side as far as possible. You should at least let him know of our good intentions. Besides, you should also take in hand your disciples, who love making trouble. The Gilded Kingdom's loss is a lesson for us. Don't let our clan become a laughing stock as well." Be it the great monarch Hegel or the two elders, Guido and Khazar, none of them dared to disobey Grand Elder Hayes. Moreover, with their status, they could naturally figure out that roping in a powerful master of inscription like Lin Li would definitely be beneficial for the Octopus clan. Hence, the three of them hurriedly bowed to Grand Elder Hayes and solemnly said, "Please rest assured, Grand Elder." Grand Elder Hayes nodded and then turned around to look at Harquis. He chided, "What are you still standing here for? Hurry up and go apologize to Master Fulik." Okay. Harquis was the most afraid of Grand Elder Hayes. If Hayes wanted to punish him, even his father, the Grand Monarch Hegel, would not dare to plead for him. With that thought in mind, he bowed and left the palace one step at a time reluctantly. He was completely different from his angsty and aggressive self when he first entered. After Harquis left, Great Monarch Hegel and the other three elders again began to carefully study the Mageth on the stone slab. However, they did not dare to devote all their attention to studying it, because they were well aware that it was not something that they could study and figure out entirely with their own efforts. The four of them had to study it together. On the other hand, Lin Li didn't take the matter seriously at all. Compared to the Divine Smith level Mageth that he was studying now, that matter was far less important and wasn't worth his effort at all. Carrying the magic materials that he had bought from the market with him, he locked himself in a room as soon as he returned to the embassy of the Tower of Dusk. However, Lin Li did not immediately begin to study that Divine Smith level Mageth, and instead summoned Demon Gordon, that had been left out in the cold for a long time. Gordon had devoured the divinity metal, and even if he did not continue devouring other metals, he would still continue to advance, though the speed was too slow. God knew when he would reach the sanctuary realm. This time, Lin Li bought the blood of the sea god with the intention of feeding it to Gordon and testing its effects. The blood of the sea god was an extremely active substance. When added to weapons and equipment, it would give them the ability to repair themselves. In that case, he wondered what kind of effects there would be after feeding it to Gordon. In fact, Demon Gordon's body was made of metal, so it already had the power of self-recovery in the first place. As long as its magical crystal was not destroyed, the entire body would be pieced together again even if it was blown into pieces. However, the recovery speed was extremely slow, and the greater the trauma, the slower the recovery. It would take a long time before its combat power could be recovered enough for it to be ready for battle again. Lin Li still did not know how to let Demon Gordon reach the sanctuary realm, and could only find a way to squeeze its power. In fact, if Demon Gordon could recover immediately, it would still give the enemy a huge headache, no matter how much damage it suffered. Anyway, Lin Li himself absolutely detested demons who could not be killed no matter what. After summoning Demon Gordon, Lin Li didn't waste any time at all as he directly took out the box of the blood of the sea god without delay, and ordered Demon Gordon to devour it. Given Demon Gordon's nature, it definitely wouldn't devour this metal, but with Lin Li's order, he would have no choice but to swallow it obediently even if it was mud. Hence, Demon Gordon took the crystal box and poured the several million gold coins into his mouth in one go. After swallowing the blood of the sea god, Gordon's body reacted immediately, while the metal seemed to have turned into a soft ball of dough. On the other hand, there seemed to be something wrapped in it that was struggling to emerge. As a result, Demon Gordon's body began bloating on one side, while a pit was formed on the other. It was changing continuously, as if it was about to explode. Seeing this situation, Lin Li also got a great shock, and he wondered if the blood of the sea god was a lethal poison for Gordon. Initially, Lin Li thought that even if Demon Gordon couldn't swallow the blood of the sea god, he could just spit it out again without suffering any substantial harm. Hence, he ordered Gordon to just devour it. However, Lin Li had no choice but to admit that it seemed he had been too careless. Of course, there was another reason that was perhaps a little cruel, and that was that Gordon was no longer of much value to Lin Li. Hence, he felt that it wouldn't be a waste to let Gordon devour the blood of the sea god, which was almost worthless to Lin Li. Thus, even if it failed, there was nothing to be frustrated about. If it were the two undead servants, Lin Li definitely wouldn't bear to do that. For example, when Norfaller consumed the blood of the Ice Blast Wyrm, Lin Li spent plenty of effort and energy on concocting it carefully. Only when he confirmed that it would not cause any negative impact on Norfaller did he let him consume it. Lin Li was much less meticulous and conscientious when it came to Gordon. After all, his undead servants were far more important to him than Gordon. At this juncture, Gordon's body no longer looked the same as it used to, because it now looked like a giant golden porcupine, with countless spikes emerging from his body. In the end, it suddenly froze, and Gordon's body seemed to have been frozen by ice, but he could still be seen trembling slightly. Immediately afterwards, he heard the sounds of the flowing sand, and Gordon's body began to disintegrate like a sand sculpture that had suddenly collapsed. In the blink of an eye, all that was left on the spot that Gordon was standing on was some glistening sand and metallic particles, which continued to disintegrate further into even smaller particles. A moment later, it turned into a metallic fluid. Lin Li was shocked by the change, but after sensing it carefully for a while, he realized that although Gordon seemed to have been destroyed, he still had some soul contact with him. In other words, even though Gordon had turned into fluid metal, and the magic crystals had disintegrated, he hadn't died yet. While Lin Li was amazed by the change in Gordon, he suddenly sensed a message from Demon Gordon through the soul contact. The content of the message was very simple. It was a type of hunger and an extreme thirst for mana. Lin Li did not lack any magical crystals, so he took out a few magical crystals and added them to the fluid metal. In the beginning, Lin Li tossed a few level 15 and level 16 magical crystals into it, but the message from Demon Gordon remained the same. Hence, he grabbed a legendary magical crystal and tossed it over. After he tossed 10 of them in total, there were finally some changes in the puddle of liquid metal. Watching the changes of the liquid metal, Lin Li felt like he was watching the Terminator. Gordon was just like the liquid cyborg in the Terminator as he moved up from the ground and quickly condensed into a 2-meter-tall humanoid figure. However, compared to its original appearance, Gordon now looked a lot less bulky and much more streamlined. Just like a beautiful metal statue, there was only a large amount of metal residue left of the liquid metal that had spread apart on the ground. During the changes, Gordon had clearly finally expelled the metal of inferior quality that was accumulated in his body. It was just akin to the improvement of one's personal aptitude. After the changes, Gordon's body was strengthened several times. At the same time, the mana fluctuation on Gordon's body was also gradually increasing towards the peak, and it stopped only when it reached the point of approaching the sanctuary realm. After all, it wasn't that easy to reach the sanctuary realm, and even with the help of divinity metal and the blood of the sea god, he could only let Gordon be close to the sanctuary realm. Whether or not Gordon could reach the sanctuary realm would still have to depend on his own abilities. After his body was condensed, Gordon knelt on one knee, bowed respectfully to Lin Li, and said in a muffled voice, "Noble master, thank you for giving me a new life." Hearing this, Lin Li was really a bit surprised as he didn't expect Gordon's IQ to have increased when Gordon's body changed. Gordon was actually a relatively normal kind of demon in the endless abyss, and his intelligence was far below that of the demon lords. They were basically still closer to the beasts. However, Gordon had now clearly advanced beyond the category of beasts and become an intelligent being. Even if Gordon's power wasn't improved, the improvement of his intelligence alone was enough to strengthen him. Besides, during the transformation, Gordon's power had already almost reached the sanctuary realm. Hence, he was truly worthy of being a trump card. Seeing that Gordon had finally transformed completely, Lin Li waved his hand and moved Gordon back to the contract space. In fact, Lin Li was well aware that the changes in Gordon were partly due to the fact that he had devoured the blood of the sea god, but more importantly, it was because of the divinity metal. Without the divinity metal that Gordon had previously swallowed, Gordon would have probably collapsed completely after swallowing the blood of the sea god. However, there was one thing that Lin Li found to be a pity. Although Gordon's strength had increased a lot, it had yet to reach the point of unlimited rebirth. If he didn't have enough mana, he would still die eventually. Lin Li put away Gordon, and was in quite a good mood since he now more or less had a powerful underling. Even an ordinary sanctuary powerhouse would probably have a hard time when facing Gordon. Of course, he wouldn't let Gordon fight a sanctuary powerhouse head-on. After all, the difference in realm could not be closed so easily. However, just as Lin Li was about to start studying that divine smith level Mageth, one of his subordinates suddenly reported at the door that there was a gift for him. Lin Li opened the door and saw that it was a mage from the Mage Legion, who was holding a box with both hands. Hence, he asked, "Jason, is this the gift? Where is the person who sent the gift?" "President, the one who sent the gift is a commoner from the Gilded Kingdom, who claimed that someone had sent him to give you the gift on their behalf. He didn't reveal any more information," the mage Jason said with curiosity written all over his face. People would often want their intended recipients to know that they were the senders of the gifts. Why would this person send it anonymously? Could it be that the gift is not a gift, but something provocative? Lin Li frowned slightly. After taking the box, he said to Jason, "Okay, I get it, you go ahead." "Yes, President," Jason answered, and bowed respectfully before excusing himself. Lin Li took the box back to the room and placed it on the table, but he did not open it immediately. The first thing that came to his mind was that there was a bomb in the box. He had seen lots of news of such incidents in his previous life before he transmigrated. However, on second thought, he realized that given the level he was at now, there weren't any bombs that could pose a threat to him. In this case, could it be a provocative package sent by someone else? For example, did they capture someone from the Tower of Dusk and cut off his ear or finger, or decapitate him and send his head here? That was actually quite a common thing even in Anril, as it was a common trick used by the bandits when they kidnapped someone or wanted to take revenge. Lin Li did not bother to think any further and simply opened the box to reveal the contents immediately. When Lin Li saw the item, he vaguely guessed who the sender of the gift was. There were some crystal boxes that were arranged neatly in the box, with some blood of the sea god that he had bought today. There were a total of 16 crystal boxes in the box, each of which contained about 40 grams of the blood of the sea god. Although it was not a rare thing, the Octopus clan was probably the only ones who could take so many out at once. Cantori and Harquis of the Octopus clan were the only ones who knew that he had bought the blood of the sea god at the market. Cantori definitely wouldn't give him a gift, so Harquis was the only possibility left. In fact, just as Lin Li guessed, Harquis was the one who sent the blood of the sea god. However, although Harquis knew that Lin Li had extremely high attainments in inscription, he still couldn't bring himself to swallow his pride and face Lin Li directly. Still, the Grand Elder insisted that he apologize to Lin Li, so he came up with such a solution. He thought that the gift should count as an apology, and he would be able to answer to the Grand Elder, while saving himself some embarrassment. However, Harquis didn't expect that Lin Li didn't even take the incident at the market seriously. If Harquis had really come to apologize or build friendly relations with him, Lin Li wouldn't have bothered to make things difficult for him or face him with a hostile attitude. Unfortunately, Harquis projected his own shortcomings on orders and missed the chance to get close to Lin Li. Lin Li bought the blood of the sea god just to help Gordon advance in level. Besides, Gordon's abilities had been increased greatly after devouring the blood of the sea god too, so he naturally didn't need the blood of the sea god anymore. Moreover, he could formulate ink that was of better quality for the maggots that he drew. Hence, he didn't need the blood of the sea god, so he tossed it to a certain corner. Lin Li then proceeded to focus all his attention on studying the divine smith level Mageth again. This time, Lin Li's understanding of the Mageth had also grown deeper. He was advancing beyond just theoretical analysis and had gradually begun putting theory into practice. After all, theoretical analysis was just theory, and only through practice could one gain a deeper understanding of the theory and verify if there were any deviations from the theory. This time, the embassy of the Tower of Dusk was basically closed to visitors. Even people like Inglos of the Brilliant Shrine and Sendros of the Darkness Shrine, who both had a good relationship with Lin Li, were denied entry a few times too. The Gilded Kingdom and the Illuminati began to send people to visit Lin Li and establish friendly relations every other day, but they had no choice but to give up. In the embassy, Lin Li barely took a step out of the room, and whenever he did, it would only be for the sake of disposing of a large number of discarded maggots every day. Although only a small amount of ink was used during the creation of maggots, the magic materials used to prepare the magical ink were rare and expensive materials that were sold by the gram. The vast amount of maggots that Lin Li discarded every day was enough to bury a person, and the consumption of magical ink was really terrifying. If converted into gold coins, the amount spent each day was probably enough to make a small country go bankrupt. At the same time, there would often be frightening roars coming from Lin Li's room that would make the entire embassy tremble a few times. Fortunately, Lin Li had set up defensive maggots in his room. Otherwise, not to mention his room, the entire embassy area would probably have been razed to the ground because of the impact. The commotion frightened everyone in the embassy area, and many emissaries of the forces even moved out of the embassy area as if they were taking refuge. Of course, even if they weren't scared, they probably couldn't continue staying there anymore. Who would be able to rest in peace amidst the commotion? Just like that, time passed day after day, and the people in the embassy of the Tower of Dusk also gradually calmed down. When everyone thought that things were finally going to pass, a dazzling ray of light suddenly emerged from one of the rooms in the Tower of Dusk's embassy. As the ray of light lit up, the entire embassy also became somewhat transparent under the light, as if it had turned into a crystal building all of a sudden. However, the phenomenon happened only for a moment, and it didn't attract much attention. After all, most people in the embassy area had long moved out to get some peace. After the phenomenon vanished, the door to Lin Li's room in the embassy of the Tower of Dusk finally opened again. President, the mages of the Tower of Dusk's Mage Legion knew that Lin Li had to have reached a critical moment in the matter that he was working on when they sensed the phenomena. Hence, under the organization of Doric, the deputy head, they all guarded outside Lin Li's room to prevent anyone from going in to disturb Lin Li. Lin Li walked out of the room and nodded at everyone before tossing a scroll in his hand to Doric. Take this scroll to the people of the Gilded Kingdom, and take part in the auction they said they would attend. Doric took the scroll, but he didn't dare to open it to take a look. Instead, he bowed to Lin Li respectfully, and said, "Yes, President, I'll get right on it." During this period of time, Archbishop Inglos of the Brilliant Shrine, High Priest Sendros of the Darkness Shrine, Elder Zoomer of the Illuminati, as well as Foreign Affairs Minister Jefferson of the Gilded Kingdom have all visited. Okay, got it, Lin Li said before turning around to return to his room. However, this time he started to rest instead of studying anything. He consumed more than just money this time as his mental strength was almost reaching the point of overburdening it. Fortunately, there were finally some results in his research, and the scroll that Doric brought to the auction should be considered one of the results of his research during this period of time. However, Lin Li was well aware that he was far from figuring out the Divine Smith level Magath thoroughly. The gains he had made today were considered small, and if he wanted to reach the Divine Smith level, he would probably have to put in millions of times more effort to do so. Lin Li knew very well that he could not study the Divine Smith level Magath thoroughly in a short time. He had completed a stage of research and gained corresponding knowledge. However, if he wanted to gain more, he would probably have to put in hundreds of times more effort and time. If he had enough time, he could stay in seclusion for a couple of 100 years, and maybe master the Divine Smith level Magath. However, he didn't have that much time, and there were lots of things for him to handle. In particular, the calamity that Garesco had predicted to appear together with the unprecedented magic tides. God knew how long the barrier of laws of Anril could be sustained. Perhaps in a day, or in a year, the prehistoric magical beasts that had been driven into the Spastime Rift at the beginning might descend and bring the world to its doom again. Although it was said that once one had mastered the Divine Smith level Magath, it would be possible to reach the Divine Smith realm, that still seemed too far away, after all. Therefore, Lin Li couldn't really put down everything and concentrate on that Divine Smith level Magath. If he were to bet everything on such an uncertain chance, it would definitely be the most foolish act. If disaster struck in the end, and he could not obtain more power from the Divine Smith level Magath, he would have already wasted the other opportunities. He had to improve his strength. It would really be a huge double loss then. Besides, he also had to strike a balance between work and rest. If he wanted to go into seclusion and study the Divine Smith level Magath, he could just go back to the Tower of Dusk and do so. There was no point in doing so in the Gilded Kingdom. It was just like going on a trip to a scenic spot, but staying in the hotel for 2 days instead of enjoying the scenery. The trip would be pointless then. Hence, after Lin Li wrote all the knowledge he gained in the past few days on the scroll, he put the Divine Smith level Magath away too. Anyway, he could study it any time since it was with him. However, the sea market was about to open soon, and it would be a pity if he missed it. However, Lin Li was not going alone this time. Instead, he took Connors and Angelano along with him. Although Lin Li had a lot of knowledge in his head, especially the knowledge of the game world from before he transmigrated, he did not dare to claim himself to be omniscient, and he might not be able to see through everything at a glance, since it was said that the precious and exotic treasures of Anral were all gathered at the sea market. Lin Li could not guarantee that he wouldn't make any blunders at all. Hence, it was necessary to bring some helpers. However, Lin Li could draw some parallels with the world that he lived in before he transmigrated. Hence, he knew the value of those items. There were some things that he could not understand through that method. No matter what, Connors was an ancient demon deity who had lived for tens of millions of years, so he was naturally very knowledgeable. In particular, his understanding of Anral was probably much clearer than that of Lin Li. Angelano's knowledge was naturally inferior to that of Connors, but his purpose in going to the sea market was mainly to find some materials that could increase the combat power of his alchemy colossus. It wasn't that Angelano suddenly wanted to work hard. At the end of the day, he was just timid. Angelano now knew that the enemies that Lin Li met were stronger and stronger. Besides, it was getting harder and harder for him to survive in those sanctuary-level battles by virtue of only his alchemy colossus. He wanted to hide and stay far from the danger, but he couldn't hide forever. Angelano's alchemy colossus was a Titan-level alchemy colossus, and its strength was definitely at the peak of the legendary level. However, it was the end of it. Others could rely on their own efforts to reach a higher realm, but alchemy colossuses were inanimate, so how could they grow stronger? Hence, there was only one way to improve the strength of the alchemy colossus. For example, he could get more advanced materials for the accessories, or have a more powerful weapon system. However, he could not change those things so easily, especially as the Titan-level alchemy colossus was considered to be at the peak of alchemy colossuses. He had used all the best materials, and changing was not a simple matter. The reason that Angelano came out together with them was that he hoped that he could find more precious materials to modify his alchemy colossus. Of course, the rare materials that could increase the combat power of the alchemy colossus were definitely extremely expensive. However, that was not a problem that he had to consider. Anyway, the Tower of Dusk was really rich in his opinion. Lin Li took both of them from the embassy of the Tower of Dusk, and the first thing they did was to go straight to the market known as the Gift of the Sea. Although Lin Li had already been there a few days ago, it had been mainly to purchase some materials for formulating magical ink, so he hadn't wasted time looking at the other things. The Gift of the Sea in Hupra City was considered the largest market, and one would not be able to browse through all the stores and stalls in such a short period of time. However, before Lin Li even reached the Gift of the Sea, he began to feel regret, mainly because the coward, Angelano, decided to put on his colorful and funny-looking armor even though they were just going to shop at the market. He was truly attracting lots of attention along the way. However, Angelano did not have the slightest bit of self-awareness at all as he kept yelling loudly along the way, and even whistled at some ladies. Lin Li truly felt embarrassed. "See, I told you not to take this guy here," said Connors, who, as a demon deity, supposedly had a strong tolerance level. However, at this point, he couldn't quite stand Angelano anymore. Unlike Angelano, Connors could be considered a handsome man. His current body was the perfect body that High Lord Osric had created, and the perfection was not only reflected in his strength, but also in his flawless appearance. After all, the High Elves were a beautiful race to begin with, as the men were incredibly suave, while the women were gorgeous. High Lord Osric was an impressive figure himself, so the perfect body he prepared definitely wouldn't be inferior. Lin Li took his subordinates on a shopping trip on the streets. One was revoltingly hideous and looked ridiculous, while the other was a handsome dreamboat. Yet, their master Lin Li seemed to belong with either. Of course, Lin Li wouldn't be jealous of them, but the thought of taking the two of them to the market made him feel troubled and helpless. At this moment, Lin Li couldn't help but think of his two undead servants. If he was accompanied by Ufalusi and Norfaler, others would probably be quick to shun them given their cold undead aura, so they wouldn't attract any attention. However, as soon as Ufalusi returned, he started getting busy with refining the Ice Phoenix's corpse, though he had no idea what would come out of it at the end. Apparently, he intended to combine the corpse of the Ice Phoenix and humorous Wyrm Crimson to create an unprecedented undead creature, and then combine the two to reach the Sanctuary Realm using their power. Although Norfaler was already a Sanctuary powerhouse, whose strength was in the middle of the Sanctuary Realm, he had only recently stepped into the Sanctuary Realm, so he needed some time to let his body adapt in order to fully exert his power. No matter what, Lin Li, Connors, and Angelano finally arrived at the Gift of the Sea market. When they got there were finally fewer people who looked at them. After all, commoners generally wouldn't visit this place, and the patrons of the market were often those who were capable or competent figures of status. Hence, they wouldn't surround them and gawk at them like nobodies who hadn't seen much of the world. Indeed, it's the divine sea pillar, said Connors, who saw the so-called divine sea pillar that Lin Li had seen previously soon after they entered the market. However, there was only one divine sea pillar left in the store now because Elder Zoomer had already bought the other one. Hearing Connors' words, Lin Li stopped in his tracks and turned to look at the divine sea pillar in the store before asking Connors, "What's the matter? Is there any special use for that thing?" Connors smiled, glanced at Angelano, who was scrutinizing the rare metal, and then said to Lin Li in a softer voice, "Flick, I'm sure you're well aware of the power of the divine sea pillar, even if I don't tell you about it. This thing is really not very useful for you." When Lin Li visited the market last time, he saw the divine sea pillar, and was aware that it was used either for ships to suppress the wind and waves, or for mages, who specialized in water elemental magic to comprehend the laws of the sea. None of its functions was useful for Lin Li, so it wasn't worth his gold coins. Lin Li was rich, but he wasn't a wastrel, so he would only spend money when necessary, or it would be a waste. "Yes, this thing is indeed of little use to me, and it's not worth spending so much money on," Lin Li said with a nod as he told Connors what he was thinking. However, after hearing his words, Connors shook his head and said, "This thing is of no use to you, but it's very useful to that dwarf. Think about it carefully. I believe I don't need to say anything more." As the saying went, two heads were better than one. Lin Li frowned slightly after hearing Connors' reminder, while mentally linking the divine sea pillar to Angelano's alchemy colossus. The power of the divine sea pillar helped with the comprehension of the laws of the sea, but the alchemy colossus definitely wouldn't need it. So, the function that would be useful for the alchemy colossus would be the resistance to wind and waves. On land, alchemy colossuses were definitely the most powerful steel monsters, but on sea, they could not exert massive power. Hence, if the divine sea pillar was used on the alchemy colossus, it would be able to exert power on sea as it did on land. With that thought in mind, Lin Li gradually stopped frowning, while his eyes were filled with a tinge of excitement. If his theory worked, he would be able to create a terrifying Titan-level alchemy colossus that could move freely on sea and exert great combat power, even without a major increase in power. Seeing that Lin Li and Connors suddenly stopped in their tracks, Angelano, who was dressed in comical armor, shook his head and walked over. He asked, "What are you guys dawdling about? There isn't any good stuff here. Let's go in and take a look elsewhere." "Angelano, let me ask you, can that alchemy colossus go onto the sea?" Lin Li asked in a bid to confirm something in case Angelano's alchemy colossus had an incredible ability to fight in the sea. If that were the case, the divine sea pillar would not be of much use to him. "Go on the sea? What a joke, it'll sink. Is there something wrong with your brains?" Angelano panicked immediately, afraid that Lin Li would develop funny ideas again. Alchemy colossus were steel giants, not alchemical warships. If they were thrown into the sea, they would definitely sink and be destroyed. As the controller, he would definitely drown to death as well. Hearing Angelano's words, Lin Li knew what the answer was, and he pointed at the divine seal pillar while asking, "Do you have a way to put that thing in your alchemy colossus?" Although Lin Li also had studied and gained a deep understanding of the alchemy colossus, Angelano, who was the owner of the alchemy colossus, would definitely know better in terms of understanding its structure. The alchemy colossus was not a big box that could fit anything. Although the Titan-level alchemy colossus was as large as a hill, its structure was very precise, and could not be altered haphazardly. "What is that?" Although Angelano had also lived for tens of thousands of years, he really might not be able to compare with Connors and Lin Li in terms of knowledge, especially that of the products of the sea. The goblins might have prospered on land before, but they had yet to reach the level of expanding to the endless ocean, so he naturally had very little understanding of the sea. Lin Li patiently told Angelano in detail about the power of the divine sea pillar. Angelano was confused at first, but after hearing that the divine sea pillar could allow his alchemy colossus to travel on sea and dominate it as if on land, his eyes gradually lit up too. "Hey, boss, give me that divine sea pillar, or whatever it's called," Angelano exclaimed without hesitation after hearing Lin Li's introduction. He didn't even consider the price of it at all. Angelano had already calculated and planned everything thoroughly. He was now in the Gilded Kingdom, which was a kingdom at sea. If his alchemy colossus could move in the sea, he would have another means of survival in this place that was surrounded by the vast ocean. However, after hearing Angelano's exclamation, the owner of the store said in disdain, "Get lost. Where did this clown come from? Go elsewhere to make trouble. Don't affect my business." It was not that the owner of the store did not want to sell his items, but rather that he felt that Angelano's appearance and outfit were really too funny and ridiculous. Hence, he thought that Angelano was a clown who performed for donations at the sea market. Besides, he felt that Angelano was too casual about the purchase of the divine sea pillar, which was considered a treasure of the store. Its price was sky high, and not something that everyone could afford. What, clown? You are a damned catfish monster. What right do you have to call me a clown? Do you do anything about aesthetics? My outfit is so popular with the ladies. How dare you call me a clown? Angelano flew into a rage as soon as he heard the owner call him a clown. He pointed at the catfish-headed boss and stomped his feet furiously. Although Angelano's colorful armor did make him look like a clown, no one had ever dared to call him a clown in his face. In the Tower of Dusk, everyone knew that he was a brilliant master of alchemy who was also the president's prestigious guest. Hence, they merely thought that it was a special interest of his to wear that comical costume. Meanwhile, since Lin Li had blatantly attacked and insulted the Gilded Kingdom, its people naturally did not dare to provoke the people of the Tower of Dusk. As a result, Angelano really thought that his armor was opulent and dazzling, giving him the confidence to whistle at the passing women when they were in the market. When he saw them smiling back at him, he felt that his ego had been fed. However, a catfish-headed Sea Clan member actually called him a clown now. Angelano obviously couldn't take that lying down. Although the owner of the store indeed had the head and the face of a catfish monster, he was naturally also immediately provoked when he got insulted. He immediately wanted to attack the dwarf Angelano and kick him out. However, before the shopkeeper could do anything, a group of people came in from outside the store led by a luxuriously dressed man, who was obviously a nobleman. Although the Catfish clan was from the Sea Clan, it was different from the other Sea Clan members. They basically each had their own territory on sea, especially the overlords of the Seven Seas, that also occupied the boundless ocean. However, the Catfish clan did not occupy their own territory, though their presence could be found in every territory of the Sea Clan. The Catfish clan sold sea specialties for a living, and their businesses spread throughout the four seas. Their existence also provided a great deal of convenience for the Sea Clan because they were not implicated even during the Great Battle at sea. For the Catfish clan, business was the most important, and everything else would be secondary, even if there was a major feud. Hence, when the catfish-headed owner saw a human nobleman walk in, he knew that there was potentially going to be a huge business deal for him. He stopped paying attention to Angelano and walked up to greet him. "Dear distinguished guest, what would you like to look at?" Seeing that the catfish-headed boss actually ignored him, Angelano was filled with greater displeasure as he scurried over and yelled, "Hey, catfish monster, did you hear me? Bring that divine sea pillar over. I want it." Not wanting Angelano to affect his business, the owner had no choice but to toss a silver coin at him in disdain. "Okay, take this money and leave quickly. Don't affect my business." The silver coin made a crisp sound as it rolled towards Angelano's feet. Dumbfounded to see the silver coin, Angelano turned to look at Lin Li and asked, "Hey, do I look so much like a clown?" Lin Li and Connorus both nodded affirmatively. At this moment, the human nobleman who entered looked at the catfish-headed owner with glistening eyes and said, "You have the divine sea pillar here. Where is it? I need to purchase a decorative ornament for my castle." "The divine sea pillar sounds like it could match my castle. I'm going to buy it." This nobleman is really impressive. He wants to buy the divine sea pillar without even asking about the price, and he even wants to use it as a decorative object for the castle. Hearing this, the catfish-headed owner's eyes lit up immediately, as if he wouldn't be at ease unless he ripped such an impressive nobleman off. He rubbed his hands, bowed forward lower, almost drooling, and said, "I can tell that you have a good taste in judgment. This divine seal pillar is the condensation of the laws of the sea." With it, the catfish-headed owner sang praises for the divine sea pillar, making it sound as if there was only one of it in this world, and that the owner thereof would immediately become a deity who could rule the world. After hearing his long speech, the nobleman waved his hand impatiently and said, "I don't care what it is, as long as it matches my castle, and no one else has it. That's enough. I can't be bothered to hear your long-winded speech. Name your price." The catfish-headed owner choked on his saliva, but he didn't show a single trace of dissatisfaction on his face. Instead, he said with a subservient smile, "Yes, the divine sea pillar is really rare. Since you like, I'll sell it to you at the lowest price I can go, 43 million gold coins." 43 million gold coins was a hefty sum. One gold coin was enough for an ordinary family to live well for a month. 43,000,000 gold coins would be enough to buy 4 or 5 alchemical battleships of the Gilded Kingdom. However, the nobleman simply agreed without frowning at all. "Sure, we'll go ahead with that price. Give it to me." "Wait, I wanted to buy it first. Why should we sell it to him? Seeing that the Divine Sea Pillar was about to be sold to someone else, Angelano got really anxious because the Divine Sea Pillar concerned his future, and would guarantee that he could live at sea. Besides, he was the one who wanted to buy it first, so he felt that the catfish-headed owner had no right to sell it to others. As for the price of 43 million gold coins, he simply ignored it because Lin Li would be the one footing the bill at the end of the day. What are you clamoring about? I've already given you money. Why are you still loitering around here? The catfish-headed owner hollered. However, while rebuking Angelano, he couldn't stop looking at Lin Li and Connorus. However, the nobleman who wanted to buy the Divine Sea Pillar smiled happily, looked at Angelano, and said, "Hey, that clown over there, do you still want to buy the Divine Sea Pillar? Listen carefully. It's 43 million gold coins, not 4,300 gold coins. Can you even afford it? Besides, if you can come up with 4,300 gold coins now, I'll give you the Divine Sea Pillar. Can you afford it or not?" While saying that, he handed his crystal card to the catfish-headed owner. "You're looking down on me, huh? Be careful, I might smash money at you," Angelano retorted. He was not good-tempered in the first place, and after hearing another person call him a clown, he was naturally displeased, and wouldn't be nice to him. "Ha, smash money at me. I will see who else in this gilded kingdom can smash money at me, Vincent." When the nobleman heard Angelano's words, he sneered in derision with an arrogant expression. Vincent, that name seemed to have rung a bell as Lin Li suddenly felt that it seemed somewhat familiar. However, after thinking about the people he knew, he realized that there seemed to be no one called Vincent among them. The catfish-headed owner no longer bothered with Angelano. After receiving the crystal card from the nobleman, he immediately began to transfer the money. However, no one expected the catfish-headed owner to stop after performing some actions at the register. With a look of dismay, he then said to the nobleman, "Vincent, Lord, there's insufficient balance in your crystal card." "What? How is that possible?" Vincent snatched the crystal card from the owner, and looked at it again and again. Seemingly having suddenly remembered something, he said, "Damn it, I just remembered that I paid the Coral Trade Union a large sum of money for goods this morning. How about you reserve the Divine Sea Pillar for me for 3 days? I'll come and purchase it in 3 days' time for 43 million gold coins, not a single one less." "Lord, I'm just a merchant, I have to do business whenever possible. Besides, the people who are here to shop are all powerful figures of high status. I'm just a merchant, how can I afford to provoke them?" the catfish-headed owner said with a bitter expression, as if someone who he couldn't afford to provoke would come to buy the Divine Sea Pillar in the next moment. "I don't care, let me tell you. I'll be convinced and let you do whatever you want if you can sell it to someone else at a price of 43 million gold coins," Vincent said while his fat cheeks jiggled. He pointed his fat finger, that was as thick as a radish, at the catfish-headed owner. He viciously barked, "If you sell it any lower than 43 million gold coins, don't blame me when I make sure you can't run this store anymore." At this juncture, Lin Li, who was at the side, not only found Vincent's name familiar, but he also felt that the act that the owner and Vincent were putting up seemed very familiar. Although he could not recall who Vincent was, he could tell that they were just putting on an act to raise the price. However, there was one thing that Lin Li could not figure out. How are they so sure that I can afford to pay those 43 million gold coins? That's a massive amount of money for any force. While Lin Li was secretly wondering and thinking about it, 2 people among the crowd suddenly walked in from outside. "Hagi, why is it so lively here in your store today? The sea market has yet to begin, but your business is already so prosperous, huh?" When the catfish-headed owner saw the 2 of them, his expression changed immediately, and he could no longer be bothered to hold it against Angelano anymore. He stepped forward and said, "Master, Donald, Prince Tori, what would you 2 like to see today?" It turned out that the 2 people who walked into the store were the emissaries sent by the Rotterdam Kingdom. One of them was the imperial mage Donald, and the other was Prince Tori of the Rotterdam Kingdom. On the one hand, they were here to participate in the Gilded Kingdom's founding celebration, and on the other hand, they were naturally there to shop at the sea market, where all the treasures of the world were gathered. Besides, Prince Tori and Donald had come to the sea market more frequently than Lin Li did. After all, Lin Li first went to Cursed Island, and since he returned, he had been studying the Divine Smith level Manga. Hence, he had just begun shopping at the sea market. On the other hand, Donald and Prince Tori didn't have that many things to do. Apart from socializing with the nobles of the Gilded Kingdom, they would spend the rest of their time shopping at the sea market. It was obviously not the catfish-headed owner's first time seeing Donald and Prince Tori. He called their names as soon as he came forth, and he seemed extremely enthusiastic. "So it's Prince Tori. I've always wanted to visit you, but unfortunately, I haven't had the time and opportunity to do so. Feel free to let me know if there's anything you've set your sights on." "They'll be on me," said the nobleman Vincent, who was really wealthy. He was just about to spend more than 40 million gold coins on a decorative item for the castle, and now he wanted to buy some things for Prince Tori and Donald. However, Donald and Tori merely nodded at Vincent before walking straight to Lin Li and Connor's. Vincent and the catfish-headed owner Hoggy watched in shock as Donald and Tori politely said to Lin Li, "Master Flick, I've just visited the embassy, but I was told that you weren't in. I didn't expect to meet you here." Hearing Donald and Tori greet Lin Li as Flick, the wealthy and powerful great nobleman, Vincent suddenly shuddered and turned around to look at Lin Li and Connor's. After he took a look, the nobleman immediately turned pale, while the fat on his cheeks began to jiggle. Although the catfish-headed owner Hoggy was surprised by Donald and Prince Tori's behavior, their business was still the most important. Hence, when he saw that they had gone to chat with one another, he turned around and said to Vincent, "Look, I can at most reserve this divine sea pillar for you for 3 days. If someone offers me a higher price, I have to sell it to them." "You don't have to. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it," Vincent said while waving his hands in annoyance. Seeing that Lin Li hadn't noticed him, he hurriedly moved his fat body over and scurried out of the shop like he was fleeing. "Haha, that's good. I want it if he doesn't," exclaimed Angelano, who didn't sense that anything was wrong. He was thrilled to see that Vincent wasn't going to vie with him anymore. Watching Vincent leave, Hoggy felt a little dejected because the others didn't seem to be interested in the divine seal pillar. Hence, he turned around to look at the clown Angelano and couldn't help but curse. "You clown, you're bent on ruining my business, huh? Come on, let's go talk to the people of the Gilded Kingdom. I will see how the Gilded Kingdom maintains the order of the market." He then reached out to grab Angelano. In fact, Angelano might have been treated as an ordinary customer if he had wanted to buy something cheap. However, as soon as he entered, he asked to buy the divine sea pillar, and to make matters worse, he was dressed in colorful armor that made him look really ridiculous. He didn't look like he could afford the divine sea pillar at all. Now that his business deal, that was worth more than 43 million gold coins, had been ruined by Angelano, Hoggy wished he could skin him alive. He no longer cared about maintaining peace. Hoggy wanted to pull Angelano over to settle the score, while the fat nobleman Vincent had also moved to the entrance of the store. However, at this moment, he heard Lin Li's voice. "Prince Vincent, where are you in a hurry to go to?" Lin Li finally remembered that his sailors had previously been caught by the Gilded Kingdom for assaulting the Prince of the Gilded Kingdom, whose name was Vincent. However, Vincent indeed did not have much to do with the matter afterwards, and the main issue was that the Gilded Kingdom felt embarrassed because of the matter regarding the royal guards. Hence, Lin Li did not pay much attention to Vincent, and merely found his name familiar, but he did not recall who he was immediately. However, that did not mean that the others didn't remember Vincent, either, because Vincent was a prince of the Gilded Kingdom, after all. After Donald's casual mention, Lin Li was reminded about it, and he immediately remembered that Vincent was the one who'd caused his sailors to be arrested. Prince Vincent, who had already reached the door, was about to walk out, but after hearing Lin Li expose his identity, he froze right on the spot. Afterwards, he turned his stiffened body around mechanically with an awkward expression on his face, and said, "Oh, it's you, President Flick. What a coincidence." "Haha, it is indeed a coincidence. I was just thinking of paying you a visit sometime so as to apologize to you for what my sailors have done." Lin Li actually didn't want to do anything to Vincent, since the matter was actually considered over. Besides, Cantori and Delano had also made use of Vincent to reap some benefits. Anyway, Vincent had merely suffered a beating, and had his title of a prince removed by Bradler. However, Vincent didn't dare to think so. Even though Lin Li and his men created such a huge ruckus, the Gilded Kingdom didn't dare to pursue the matter. If Lin Li were to kill him, or sever his limbs, his nephew, the king, would definitely not stand up for him. The matter regarding the royal guards was a blatant insult, but Bradler could bear with it too. In that case, how could the latter's loser of an uncle receive his support? At the thought of this, Vincent couldn't help but shudder as if he couldn't bear the weight of his fat body. His face was also soon covered with sweat droplets as if he had just come out of the water. He said in a shaky voice, "Master Flick, I'm joking. That matter was clearly my fault, and I deserve to be beaten up too for causing your sailors to suffer. I should be the one to apologize." Hearing that Prince Vincent was actually talking to Lin Li in such a subservient tone, the catfish-headed owner, Hoggy, who was next to him, was a bit dumbfounded. After listening to his words, he realized that Prince Vincent seemed to have also been beaten up by Lin Li's sailors. He was the prince of the Gilded Kingdom, so how could he have gotten hit by a few lowly sailors? How could the Gilded Kingdom have tolerated it? Is that so? Are you really going to apologize? Although Lin Li originally did not intend to find trouble with Prince Vincent, he decided that he had to reap some benefits since the other party had taken the initiative. Vincent froze in shock for a while. He initially thought that the matter was over, and that things could be settled by saying some nice things. He didn't expect Lin Li to hint for him to give him something substantial. As Lin Li looked at the stunned Vincent, the former smile gradually faded, and was replaced by a cold expression. He asked in displeasure, "What's the matter, Prince Vincent? Were you just making a casual remark?" Vincent shuddered, and immediately snapped back to his senses before frantically saying, "What do you mean, President Flick? You must be joking. I genuinely want to apologize to you. I just don't know if you can give me this opportunity." "Well, this shows a little bit of your sincerity," Lin Li said as he finally nodded in satisfaction. He then pointed to the divine sea pillar beside him. Without standing on ceremony at all, he said, "Just now, I heard you say that you want to buy that divine sea pillar. It just so happens that my subordinate is quite interested in it. What do you think we should do?" "Ah, I see. I will not buy it then. You may have it," Vincent said after hearing his words, and he couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. It turned out that he didn't want Vincent to spend a huge amount of money, but rather he just wanted Vincent to let him have the divine sea pillar. Vincent was just pretending to be impressive, and he wasn't planning to really buy that divine sea pillar anyway. Since Lin Li wanted it, Vincent would let him buy it. Well, he wouldn't be at a loss anyway. However, since Lin Li said he wanted to see Vincent's sincerity, how could Lin Li let Vincent get away with it that easily? The former immediately sneered, and said, "Prince Vincent, if I'm the one buying it, how can I see your sincerity?" Prince Vincent finally understood that Lin Li was trying to exploit him. The divine sea pillar was going to cost 43 million gold coins. Where was he supposed to get so much money? Not to mention 43 million gold coins, he couldn't even afford 4,300,000 gold coins. Otherwise, how could he have come to put up an act? The thought of the miserable fate that he would end up suffering if he refused made Vincent's face turn pale immediately as he stood up to President Flick. "I'm no longer a duke, and the royal family has also stopped providing for my living expenses. I'm relying only on the rent collected from a few stores I've rented out. I don't have that much money to buy the divine sea pillar." However, Lin Li would not be fooled by Vincent's crocodile tears. The other party was the prince of a nation, and even if he was a wastrel, he could still make a lot of money by relying on his title as a prince for several years. How could he be possibly reduced to the state of having to live on rent? As for helping others stage acts, Vincent would at least get a commission of a few million gold coins if he could sell the divine sea pillar at 43 million gold coins. Lin Li had long seen through Vincent's and the catfish-headed owner's tricks, but he did not expose them directly. Instead, he sneered and said, "Is that so? But I just heard that you asked the owner to reserve the divine sea pillar for you for 3 days, and now you're telling me that you don't have enough money." Vincent was full of regrets at this point, but he had himself to blame for being so unlucky to have run into Lin Li. After hesitating for a long time, he said, "President Flick, I was just joking with Hoggy. That thing costs more than 40 million gold coins. Even if I buy it, I can't sell it for a high price." "You were joking." "I took it seriously, though." Lin Li then turned around to face the catfish-headed owner Hoggy. Seeing that Vincent was wiping his sweat incessantly, he calmly said, "Hoggy, please bring me that divine sea pillar, and charge it to Prince Vincent's account. You two like joking with each other all the time anyway." Hoggy froze in shock now too. "What a joke. Charge it to Vincent's account. I'll never get my money back then." "President Flick, this is all his idea, and I'm just helping him. He said that this thing can be sold for a high price. It really has nothing to do with me." Vincent began to panic because he wasn't favored by the royal family in the first place, and if he were to get himself in debt now, he would probably really end up with nothing. "What? Does this mean that you two are colluding to cheat others? I didn't expect that there would be such a thing in the sea market of the Gilded Kingdom. I really want to question Bradler and ask him what's going on in this sea market," Lin Li exclaimed with righteous indignation, as if he had just realized it. Vincent was frightened and scared out of his wits. If Bradler were to get involved, the former would probably never get his title back. He frantically pleaded, "President Flick, let's talk things over calmly." "Hoggy, what are you waiting for? Bring the divine sea pillar over here. Are you waiting to be kicked out of the sea market?" Hoggy was just as terrified and shocked. Although the divine sea pillar wasn't really worth more than 40 million gold coins, he could at least sell it for 10-20 million gold coins. When the old human came over previously, he had bought one of the divine sea pillars at the price of nearly 20 million gold coins. Yet, Hoggy had to give it away now without earning a single cent. However, Hoggy didn't dare not to give it away. If the matter was really exposed, and the Gilded Kingdom were to find out, he would at most be kicked out of the sea market. However, if others found out that he played such dirty tricks in business, no one would want to have any business dealings with him anymore. President Flick, how about this? I'll sell the divine sea pillar to you at the cost price of 20 million gold coins. I won't earn a single cent of your money. Previously, you spent a magical crystal that was worth a few million gold coins at Kalakala's store. This should be peanuts to you, said Hagi, who, of course, couldn't bear to give the divine sea pillar away just like that. In his opinion, he was sincere enough to have given him a 50% discount. Hearing Hagi mention the previous incident, Lin Li finally knew why they had deliberately staged such an act. Previously, Harquis of the Octopus clan had tried to spar with Lin Li and Inscription, but in the end, Lin Li didn't let Kalakoli deduct the money for the goods from his card. Instead, he just left behind a few legendary magical crystals, which were worth at least a few million gold coins. It was definitely more than the cost of the goods. Hearing Hagi's words, Lin Li did not say anything, but Vincent anxiously hollered, "You're still thinking of making President Fulik pay? Hagi, are you out of your mind? You got those tens of thousands of gold coins by cheating that person who has poor judgment, and used it to get the divine sea pillars. The cost price doesn't amount to 20 million gold coins. What? I traveled thousands of kilometers, and went through a lot of hassle to painstakingly bring them here. Are my efforts not worth any money? I'm only selling it to him for over 20 million gold coins. That's not too much to ask for, is it? You're the one who offended him. It has nothing to do with me. Why should I give the divine seal pillar away for nothing?" Hagi immediately lost his temper, and got into a huge tiff with Vincent. After looking at the two of them argue for a long time, Lin Li interrupted them, and said, "How much the divine sea pillar is worth has nothing to do with me. You two take your time to calculate. Vincent, since you're so sincere in apologizing, I will accept your sincerity." After saying that, he waved his hand, and the blue crystal pillar darted out, and landed on his hand. "Vincent, I'm telling you, I'm going to charge that divine sea pillar at a price of 20 million gold coins. You can put your castle as collateral, but don't try to deny this and feign ignorance." Hagi knew that he could not afford to offend Lin Li, and thus had no choice but to make Vincent pay. Anyway, Vincent had already revealed everything, and said that he had lost his title as a duke. There was nothing to be afraid of then. Vincent was naturally unwilling to show weakness at all. He then pulled Hagi, and exclaimed, "What 20 million gold coins? It clearly costs only tens of thousands of gold coins. Don't think of getting a single gold coin from me." Their argument was getting heated, but Lin Li was no longer interested. He said to his subordinates, Conoris, Angelano, "We've already bought what we need, it is time to go." He then ignored the two who were in an argument, and strode away from the store leisurely. Seeing this, Conoris and Angelano immediately followed Lin Li out. However, when passing by the two, Angelano still could not help but kick them each for calling him a clown. Of course, although being called a clown was infuriating, he had obtained the divine sea pillar, which meant that he could have one more means of survival on the sea, and it was indeed something that was worth rejoicing over. On the other hand, Donald and Prince Tori of the Rotterdam Kingdom naturally would not stay here for any longer. They glanced at each other speechlessly, both understanding that they could not afford to offend Lin Li easily. The incident in the store had caused some delay, but they weren't there simply to watch the show. They were certain that Prince Vincent would definitely go to the embassy of the Tower of Dusk to look for him. The Catfish clan was quite powerful, and Vincent had been deposed as a duke. Without the king to support him, it would not be easy for him to pay for the divine sea pillar. Although Vincent was known to be a wastrel in the Gilded Kingdom, he was still of some use to Lin Li. Bradler might have stripped him of his title, but Lin Li was certain that it wouldn't take long for it to be restored. After all, he was Bradler's uncle. With the help of Vincent's title as the prince, the business of the Tower of Dusk could be expanded into the Gilded Kingdom would be much easier. Using the Gilded Kingdom, the Tower of Dusk could collect all kinds of precious resources from the endless ocean with greater ease. It would also provide great motivation for the development of the Tower of Dusk. Of course, at this juncture, Lin Li wouldn't talk about those matters with Vincent. Only by pushing this prince to the breaking point and conditioning him into submission could he truly make the latter work for the Tower of Dusk. Lin Li put the divine sea pillar away into the ring of endless storm, and continued to wander around casually in the gift of the sea. When he returned a few days after his previous visit, there were obviously many more Sea Clan members than before in the market. There was also a greater plethora of goods sold in the stores, which were bedazzling. "Sir, what would you like to see? Take a look at this. It's molten adamantine that was produced at the bottom of the deep-sea volcano. It contains the power of the elements of fire and water, and it's the best material for creating magical equipment," Hagi explained, introducing the goods in the store to Lin Li while his saliva splattered everywhere. The Catfish clan was indeed worthy of being the merchant tribe of the Sea Clan, as their stores accounted for almost half of the gift of the sea. However, they each had their specific origin, and there were different clans of the Sea Clan, such as the Giant Shark clan, and some other clans from the sea area near the mysterious continent in the east. There was a large variety of goods, and they were almost all the common resources and minerals of the endless ocean. However, those commonly seen things were not Lin Li's purpose when shopping in the sea market. The transformation of the Sky Castle indeed required a large number of materials, but even with the financial strength of the Tower of Dusk, they could not afford to buy everything they needed, not even if they went bankrupt. Hence, the true problem with the Sky Castle was not that they couldn't get the materials, but rather that they could not afford them all. Even if they went bankrupt, they could only build half of the Sky Castle. Hence, while things like magic metals and adamantine might not be expensive, Lin Li did not intend to buy them, because he didn't want to waste money on things he didn't need. He felt that it would be better to find something that he really needed, or something that could take effect quickly, such as the Divine Sea Pillar, that was ready to be installed in the Alchemy Colossus. With the Divine Sea Pillar, Angelano's Titan-level Alchemy Colossus could travel smoothly on sea, and exert great combat power. When facing the strong and powerful enemies at sea, it was another level of enhanced strength. Although Lin Li was rich, there was a limit to how much he should spend. He wouldn't spend tens of millions of gold coins on a decorative ornament, and would rather spend on what he really needed. After browsing through a few stores, Lin Li was more or less disappointed. Although the goods in those stores were good, they would be garbage if he didn't need them. In fact, the store owners might have lots of resources, but they might not have access to good things all the time. Previously, Hagi was lucky enough to have obtained the 2 Divine Sea Pillars, but not everyone might be that lucky. Follow the latest novels in Velben.com. Of course, Lin Li's trip was not fruitless. After just half a day in the market, he had already spent tens of millions of gold coins. For example, he got some deep sea blue gold that could be used to create magical accessories. A tiny bit of it would greatly improve the quality of magical accessories, but it was very expensive. There were also some sea ghoulweed, deep ocean lanternweed, and many other rare herbs that were good for the preparation of certain potions. Those things were not available only in the sea market, but they were just quite rare during other times. Lin Li bought these things just because he happened to come across them, and thought that if he bought them now, he would not have to look for them specifically when needed later. Moreover, after the purchase, Lin Li also obtained the contact details of the store owners, so that he could purchase goods directly from them in the future. The items sold in this market were not particularly outstanding, but it was very difficult to bargain for a cheaper price. Previously, Vincent had paid for the Divine Sea Pillar, but Lin Li paid for his subsequent purchases with real money. After all, there were laws in this market, and the prices had to be kept within a relatively fixed range. Selling them at too high or too low of a price would be breaking the rules of the market. After shopping at the Gift of the Sea, it was already getting late. Lin Li took Connorus and Angelano back to the embassy of the Tower of Dusk. However, as soon as they walked through the embassy's doors, they saw that there were already guests waiting inside, waiting for Lin Li. They were none other than Donald and Prince Tori of the Rotterdam Kingdom. Lin Li couldn't help but be surprised that they were waiting there because they had previously already met at the market, and if there had been anything up, they could have just talked about it there. There was no need to come here at all. Of course, Lin Li could not voice it out loud. He smiled, and said, "Master Donald, Prince Tori, you've been waiting for a long time, huh? I didn't get to chat more with you guys in the day. I'm really very sorry." Although Lin Li and the Rotterdam Kingdom had had a conflict when exploring the Sky Castle previously, Donald and Prince Tori had been rather friendly to Lin Li ever since they arrived in the Gilded Kingdom. Hence, Lin Li naturally didn't have to be hostile to them. After seeing Lin Li enter, Donald and Prince Tori frantically stood up. They were not as arrogant as the others of Rotterdam Kingdom. Donald took 2 steps forward with a smile, and said, "President Flick, you're being too polite. We've just arrived a while ago. Actually, we've long wanted to visit, but never had the opportunity. We decided to come here to visit you before the news got out because we saw you at the market today. If we're any later, we might not have a place to sit anymore." Although Donald was the chief imperial mage of the Rotterdam Kingdom, who had a very high status, he had already witnessed the strength of Lin Li and the Tower of Dusk during the time spent in the Sky Castle. Besides, Lin Li had also insulted the Gilded Kingdom twice, but there was nothing the Gilded Kingdom could do to retaliate, thus making Donald feel that Lin Li was profound and unpredictable. Hence, Donald made up his mind to build a good relationship with Lin Li, and even went out of his way to swallow his pride and flatter the latter. If he could have a good relationship with Lin Li, it would be the greatest thing he gained from the trip to the Gilded Kingdom. Lin Li naturally heard Donald's compliments, but he did not have any special reaction. Instead, he remained smiling, and said, "You must be joking, Master Donald, we're acquaintances. All my friends and acquaintances will be given a seat when they're here." Lin Li actually didn't mean anything else, but Donald and Tori were overjoyed to hear his words. However, They knew very well that anyone could say polite and nice things, and whether or not they could really become friends with Lin Li would depend on their actions. After all, not all friendships were the same, and some were stronger than the others. Effort had to be put into a friendship to keep it going too. At this point, Lin Li merely decided not to hold what happened previously against them. After they were seated, Lin Li also went to sit down on the master's seat. He then said to the two of them, I went on a shopping trip in the sea market today, and I have to say that it's really such an eye-opener. Why didn't you two go on a tour around the market too? Why did you come here instead? Of course, Lin Li knew that Donald and Prince Tori had come over with the purpose of bonding. However, unless they were really close friends, they had to put in effort to spend time with Lin Li and keep their friendship going. After all, their relationship hadn't reached that level yet. If they were from the Felon Kingdom, Leaden Kingdom, or the Brilliant Shrine and Darkness Shrine, which had business dealings and cooperations with the Tower of Dusk, they could at least discuss their partnerships. However, the people of the Rotterdam Kingdom had only interacted with the Tower of Dusk during the exploration of the Sky Castle. Later on, they did not cooperate in business or any foreign affairs, so there was no contact at all. Hearing Lin Li's words, Prince Tori smiled and said, President Flick, since you visited the market today, you must also know that although the goods sold at the market are not too bad, almost none of the goods are really excellent. The Divine Sea Pillar that you bought was an exception, and you can't find something of its level in all stores. Prince Tori's words were really what Lin Li wanted to hear. The Gift of the Sea was already the largest market, where they could find anything they wanted. If not, there would probably be little hope of finding it in other markets. In fact, it made sense because it was only human nature to sell a good thing for a high price. They would naturally want to put it up for auction to fetch a higher price. Lin Li did not avoid or hide anything, and simply nodded, and truthfully said, yes, it might be lively at the sea market, but there aren't any rare or precious treasures. It seems that it's better to wait for the auction after the sea market officially opens. After the official opening of the sea market, there would be a series of auctions that were held not only by the Gilded Kingdom, but also by other powerful merchants or large sea clan forces. At that time, there would truly be a huge display of all kinds of exotic treasures, each of which probably would not be inferior to the Divine Sea Pillar. Seeing that Lin Li agreed with him, Prince Tori gleefully said, the auction is indeed a good place for displaying exotic treasures, but apart from the auctions, there's another place where we can find precious treasures. Upon hearing Prince Tori's words, Lin Li was really interested as he raised his brows and asked, what are you referring to, Prince Tori? President Flick, have you ever heard of the profession of a secret merchant? Asked Prince Tori. When he saw that he had aroused Lin Li's interest, his tone also sounded much more casual than before. When he started talking to Lin Li, Prince Tori was really anxious, mainly because he was frightened by what Lin Li had done in the Gilded Kingdom, and was afraid that he would mess things up again if he were to say something wrong. However, after some icebreakers and chatting with him for a while, he realized that this young sanctuary powerhouse was not as difficult to get along with as he had imagined. Indeed, Lin Li was just like that. If others were nice to him, he would treat them with respect too. If they were to provoke him, he would insult them back. Hence, although Prince Tori was leaving him hanging, Lin Li wasn't annoyed, and instead asked, secret merchants, are they different from ordinary merchants? Although Prince Tori had kept him in suspense, he knew he could not go too far, so he said, to put it bluntly, secret merchants are in fact merchants who do sordid business. On the surface, they may be ordinary businessmen, or people who hold ordinary occupations, but their abilities are far beyond ordinary. Once Lin Li heard this explanation, he came to a sudden realization, and at the same time, he guessed what exactly Prince Tori was probably talking about. The so-called secret merchants were just black market merchants, who had treasures, but could not sell them openly at the auctions. Naturally, they were obtained through sordid means, so they had to sell them on the black market. At the end of the day, it was because Lin Li had too few resources. He should have thought of the black market long ago. Although Lin Li generally wasn't interested in black market, the sea market of the Gilded Kingdom was now open, and the so-called secret merchants in the world were all out to make a fortune here. It was definitely something on a larger scale than the ordinary black market. I think I may know what place you are talking about, but you need to have resources and connections to enter such a place. At this moment, Lin Li actually knew the reason that Donald and Tori came to visit him. Just like Lin Li said, those secret merchants were running sordid businesses, so they naturally couldn't promote and run them openly like auctions. They couldn't just let strangers in, either. Even if they had a strong background or some powerful backers, they might not be able to enjoy protection. Hence, The secret merchants were very picky with their guests. Either their guests would have to be recommended by a frequent patron, or the secret merchants would have to be familiar with their backgrounds. Prince Tori and Donald were not surprised by Lin Li's words. At this point, Lin Li's intelligence would be questionable if he still couldn't guess it. As expected of President Flick, you've made a really good guess. Although this matter was not difficult to guess, Prince Tori still gave Lin Li a thumbs up and complimented him sincerely. Yes, the place I'm referring to is the Market of Secret Merchants, which is sponsored by the Secret Merchants Alliance. There's an alliance for secret merchants. Lin Li froze for a moment, and thought, wow, the black market merchants of this place are really bold. They actually have an alliance too. Aren't black market merchants usually careful and afraid of having their identities exposed? Even with their peers, they would be extremely wary and keep their guard up against each other. By creating an alliance to unite everyone, won't they be in trouble? However, after hearing Prince Tori's introduction, Lin Li also guessed why those secret merchants were so brazen. Although the Secret Merchants Alliance was a lax organization that was led by the 10 most established secret merchants of Anral who might not know each other's identity, the Secret Merchants Alliance also united all the competent secret merchants of Anral. If there was an outrage and they went all out, it would probably not be difficult to overthrow a kingdom. Of course, the purpose of merchants was to earn money. Secret merchants were still merchants, and as long as they weren't forced to the point of no return, they would not go all out and fight with all their might. Anyway, they had already amassed a large amount of wealth, and they would at most just give up. Even though it was said that they could overthrow a kingdom, it just meant that the amount of money they had was astonishing. The important point was that no one knew the real identity of the secret merchants. They could be bishops of the Brilliant Shrine, princes of a kingdom, or even people with more shocking identities. Hence, no force dared to guarantee that none of their members was a secret merchant. Even if they wanted to attack the Secret Merchants Alliance, their efforts would usually prove futile. Hence, as long as the Secret Merchant Alliance did not go too far, there was basically no force that made things difficult for them. The existence of the Secret Merchants Alliance allowed the deals and transactions between secret merchants to be carried out more easily. Of course, it wasn't that easy to join the Secret Merchants Alliance, and even the most junior secret merchants had to have at least more than 10 years of experience. It is said that the Secret Merchants Alliance existed since the Dark Age, and there are even rumors that the rebellion army had once obtained the support of the Secret Merchants Alliance during the war at the end of the Dark Age. Thus, they managed to finally overthrow the rule of the High Elves. Of course, this is only a legend, or perhaps something that the Secret Merchants Alliance had made up to make themselves seem impressive. At this point, Prince Tori couldn't help but laugh out loud because he clearly didn't think that the legend was believable. Prince Tori briefly introduced the Secret Merchants Alliance before revealing the legend that could be taken as a joke. That was all he knew about the Secret Merchants Alliance. Anyway, even the secret merchants of the Alliance probably could not reveal much information. Lin Li was not very interested in finding out more about the Secret Merchants Alliance. He just wanted to buy some useful things anyway. According to Prince Tori's introduction, there should be more good things in the secret merchants market that the Secret Merchants Alliance organized since it was such a huge alliance. Let's not talk about the legend anymore. You two didn't come here just to tell me stories, did you? Lin Li asked half-jokingly with a smile as he looked at Donald and Prince Tori. Although the purpose of their visit was already obvious, Lin Li still had to hear it from the horse's mouth. Besides, Lin Li had also thought that even if Donald and Tori didn't come today, the news and outcome of their research today would spread, and people would come to do the same thing that they did. After all, in the Gilded Kingdom, Donald and Tori were not the only ones with resources. There were the Felon Kingdom, the Leaden Kingdom, the Darkness Shrine, the Brilliant Shrine, and the Illuminati. They were probably already clear about the secret market. Seeing that Lin Li did not take the initiative to speak, Prince Tori was more or less disappointed. However, he maintained a smile and said, "Yes, President Fulick, Master Donald and I came to visit you this time to invite you to come with us to the secret merchant market. We hope to have the honor to be your guides." Prince Tori's attitude was really quite positive, and one could hardly see a bit of the inherent arrogance possessed by the nobles of the Rotterdam Kingdom. In the hearts of the people of the Rotterdam Kingdom, they had always perceived themselves to be the humans who had saved Anral, and always viewed the people of other kingdoms with the identity of their saviors. For example, although Prince Canber was aware that their strength was no match for the Tower of Dusk's teams, and that Lin Li was a sanctuary powerhouse, he was still extremely arrogant. Lin Li was indeed quite satisfied with Prince Tori's attitude. It was not that he was fishing for compliments. After all, anyone who was treated condescendingly would definitely be displeased. Hence, Lin Li did not continue to say any pleasantries, and simply nodded. "Okay, I'm a little tempted now. When is the secret merchant market going to begin?" Although they did not manage to make Lin Li ask them to take him to the secret merchant market, their purpose was considered to have been achieved. Unable to contain his joy, Prince Tori said, "President Fulik, if there's nothing you have to do, we might as well go now. The secret merchant market opened 5 days ago, and it takes place every other night, just in different places. Tonight, it should be on a ship named the Mermaid. There's still some time to go before it sets sail today." The Mermaid was a famous large cruise ship in the Gilded Kingdom, and based on the name, it was obvious what businesses were usually run on it. The real owner of the cruise ship was said to be from the Siren clan, and was known as a mermaid. The characteristics of the Siren clan was that the female sirens were beautiful. In fact, they were even on par with the High Elves, who were known for their perfection. However, the male sirens were hideous. However, although the women of the Siren clan looked beautiful and gentle, they were not to be messed with. In fact, they were all born spiritual mages, who specialized in spiritual magic and mental spells. Spiritual magic was not that easy to defend against, not to mention affinity spells of the Siren clan. During the casting, there was almost no magical wave. Hence, people tended to be struck by it, before they even realized. Hence, there were all sorts of sea clan slaves, who were sold openly and secretly in the endless ocean, including giant shark knights, but the women of the Siren clan had never been sold. The men of the Siren clan might be ugly and hideous, but they were all very strong and powerful archers of the sea. Logically speaking, arrows launched in the water would not be shot far, and even when they touched the bodies of humans, there wouldn't be great damage. However, the males of the Siren clan should technically be magic archers because they had a wisp of oceanic laws that would allow the arrows that they shot into the sea to possess greater power. During the Great War of the Ocean, the archers of the Siren clan performed outstandingly, especially against the mages of the Thunder Eel clan. The ocean archers had paid only a small price to annihilate the entire mage legion of the Thunder Eel clan. Although the soldiers played an important role, it was enough to prove that the ocean archers had incredible combat power. While the giant shark clan troops reinforced the Thunder Eel clan and deterred the Siren clan's troops, the giant shark knights had paid quite a huge price. Besides, it was said that an important reason for the victory of the giant shark clan was due to the small population of the Siren clan, and the Siren clan's queen did not want to suffer many casualties, so she ordered for them to return. Otherwise, even if the giant shark clan had really won in the end, they would have had to suffer miserable consequences. Hence, although the Siren clan was small, they were also one of the 7 great hegemons of the endless ocean. In fact, they were the top among the 7. Putting aside the relationship between the Secret Merchant Alliance and the Siren clan, the relationship between the Mermaid and the Siren clan was enough to deter most people from creating trouble there. There was probably no safer place than the Mermaid to host the secret merchant market. Besides, that point alone was enough to show that the secret merchant market was definitely quite upscale, and there was an 80% chance that something of good quality would appear. The famous ship, the Mermaid, was docked at Helena Port, and there were luxurious lighting and decorations, making it look like a shining bright pearl at night. There were some luxuriously dressed bigwigs on the quay, who were greeting each other warmly or chatting with some friends. They boarded the opulent cruise ship one after another under the guidance of several ushers. At this moment, several figures descended from the sky. They were Lin Li, Connorus, Donald, and Prince Tori. Although the capital of the Gilded Kingdom, Hupper City, was a distance away, they could arrive in an instant. The arrival of Lin Li and the others did not attract much attention. After all, those who were here to attend the secret merchant market were not ordinary people. However, after Lin Li and the others landed, another strange sound came from the air, causing everyone to subconsciously look upwards. There was a dazzling silver alchemical machine that had a strange shape. It looked like a large steel bird that quickly flew to the sky above the crowd before slowly landing on the ground. When the alchemical machine settled on the ground, a dwarf dressed in colorful armor jumped out and scurried towards Lin Li and the others. Angelano rushed towards Lin Li and complained in displeasure, "Fulik, how mean of you not to ask me along to such a fun place." Lin Li stroked his forehead helplessly because he didn't expect Angelano to chase after him. He didn't intend to bring this dwarf along, not because he was afraid of being embarrassed, but because Lin Li's purpose of going to the secret merchant market was to get some treasures, so he had to keep a low profile. However, Angelano's armor was too eye-catching, and if Angelano tagged along, there was no way he could keep a low profile. He couldn't help it. Since Angelano tagged along, Lin Li couldn't chase him away either. After all, Angelano was free and not bound to any contract, unlike Connorus and the others who had signed soul contracts with Lin Li. Sometimes, Angelano wouldn't follow Lin Li's orders. "Master Angelano, you're here too." Donald couldn't help his eyes lighting up as soon as he saw Angelano. Back when they were in the Sky Castle, Donald had witnessed for himself Angelano's attainments in alchemy. However, he wouldn't dare to suck up to Angelano, because he had painstakingly gotten closer to Lin Li. If his plans were ruined because of that, it would be tragic. Besides, Donald was also well aware that as long as he built a good relationship with the Tower of Dusk, there would be more opportunities to ask Angelano for advice on alchemy colossuses. Moreover, even if they wanted to poach Angelano, they couldn't. Those who were greedy would usually end up losing everything. Hence, Donald merely greeted Angelano before acting as the guide who brought Lin Li and the others to the mermaid. There were several attendants waiting at the gangway of the ship. When they saw Donald and the others, they raised their hands to gesture for them to wait before politely saying, "Guests, please show your invitation cards." Although there was no need to worry about anyone causing trouble on the mermaid, there were still rules at the secret merchant market. They were running a sordid business, so they naturally couldn't let just anyone enter. Usually, they would send invitations to the acquaintances and invited guests ahead of time, and the latter would be required to display their invitation cards at the entrance. Donald and Tori took out their respective invitations and showed them to the attendants. Donald then said, "Get the people who are in charge to come here. I'd like to take a few friends in with me today." After reading the invitation cards, one of the attendants looked at Lin Li and the others behind him. He then said to Donald, "Yes, please wait a moment." After saying that, he turned around and went up the gangway to board the ship. After that attendant boarded the ship, Donald turned around and explained to Lin Li, "President Fulick, I'm really sorry, these are the rules here, and they apply to everyone. Please don't mind it." Although it was a little troublesome, Lin Li was there to get some treasures, and he could still afford to wait. Hence, he waved his hand and smilingly said, "It's all right, it's just waiting for a while." A few moments later, a person in charge, who was wearing a white mask, came out with the attendant. The mask was covering his face, and there was a silver swordfish drawn on the mask. He smiled and said, "Master Donald, Prince Tori, welcome here. I heard that the two of you are going to bring your new friends here. Can you introduce them to me?" Previously, Lin Li had learned from Donald and the others that all merchants and senior managers in the secret merchant market would cover their faces with masks to hide their true identities, and the patterns drawn on the masks were their code names. The senior managers would wear white masks, while the variety of masks that merchants wore were unlimited. Hence, it wouldn't matter even if they wore a pig mask. At this moment, Donald gave way by moving to the side and said to that manager, "Swordfish, once I mention the name of this person I'd like to introduce, you will know who he is. It's President Fulick." "President Fulick? Which President Fulick?" Swordfish froze for a moment as he was momentarily stunned. Seeing that Swordfish wasn't cooperating with him at all, Donald immediately glared at him and emphasized, "Of course it's President Fulick of the Tower of Dusk." This time, Swordfish finally reacted. Although his expression was concealed by the mask, his tone was full of shock as he said, "Oh, so it's President Fulick of the Tower of Dusk. I've long heard of your name, but I unfortunately haven't had the chance to meet you before. It's a great honor to have you here." How could he not have heard of President Fulick, who had destroyed the Fifth Fleet of the Gilded Kingdom and razed the barracks of the royal guards in one go? Those two incidents were known to everyone in the kingdom. Most importantly, the Gilded Kingdom had no choice but to tolerate the humiliation despite having been insulted twice. That made them wonder just how powerful must President Fulick of the Tower of Dusk be that he could make the Gilded Kingdom so careful. Lin Li did not really take to heart Swordfish's compliments. The latter had definitely heard of Fulick before, but it shouldn't be that exaggerated. After all, merchants tended to lie all the time. Hence, Lin Li merely nodded with a smile and said, "Don't worry, I came here with the intention to get some items, and these two people behind me are my friends. Can we go in now?" Swordfish hurriedly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, if we had known that you were interested in our market, we would have sent the invitation in advance, Master Fulick. This is negligence on our part. Please pardon us." He then personally guided Lin Li and the others to board the mermaid from the gangway. The mermaid was slightly larger in size than the Gilded Kingdom's alchemical battleships, but much smaller than the Star. In fact, when standing on the deck of the mermaid, one would be able to see the Star. However, the size of the mermaid could be considered rare among the ships. After Lin Li and the others boarded the mermaid, the secret merchant market had yet to officially commence. After waiting for another half hour or so, the mermaid finally set sail, and the moon was already in the middle of the sky. The mermaid left the dock slowly and headed for the sea, reminding Lin Li of the casino ships that existed in the world he transmigrated from, where the gambling would begin only after the ship had sailed into the middle of the sea. Lin Li was puzzled. There were no unowned seas here, and the entire sea territory belonged to the Gilded Kingdom. The mermaid couldn't possibly sail all the way outside the Gilded Kingdom's seas. "Master Fulick, the secret merchant market is about to open. let's go over together. Donald was a regular customer of the market too. When he saw the ships moving over, he immediately walked up to Lin Li and gave him a reminder. Lin Li nodded and took Connorus and Angelano with him to follow Donald and Prince Tori towards the ships. While walking, he asked, Master Donald, those ships should belong to the secret merchants, right? Yes. They are secret merchants who dare to sell anything. Sometimes, they even have the guts to move marine beasts to this market. However, ships like these are usually used to carry trafficked slaves or precious marine creatures, Donald explained to Lin Li while leading the way at the front. Although the mermaid was large enough, it was just a place for trading, and it was impossible to load any goods directly onto it. In particular, the items that Donald mentioned, such as slaves, sea creatures, or anything that would easily cause a big commotion, were usually prohibited on board. If one wanted to purchase those items, they would have to go through the Secret Merchants Alliance, which would send someone to supervise the handover of goods to ensure the interests of the customers after the deal was confirmed. Under Donald's guidance, Lin Li and others soon arrived in the cabin of the mermaid, which was rather spacious. At this moment, the secret merchants there had already set up their goods in their respective spots. Putting aside all the other factors, this scene alone reminded Lin Li of the farmers' markets that he would visit in his previous life before transmigrating, except that it was, of course, much more orderly and organized than the rowdy farmers' markets. Be it the customers or secret merchants, they were all extremely quiet while browsing through the goods and waiting for customers to show up. There were probably nearly 100 stalls in the entire cabin, each with a width of about 2 meters. According to Donald's introduction, those secret merchants who owned stalls were of the lowest level. In order to gain access to the truly superior grade fine goods, they would have to go through the door at the end of the cabin. However, for Lin Li, it didn't matter if the goods were fine and exquisite or not, because the key was that they had to be useful to him. Only things that he could put to use were the most valuable. Even if he possessed a unique item that was one of its kind in the world, it would still be useless if he didn't need it. Besides, the quality of the goods sold by the secret merchants here definitely wouldn't be too bad, since they could run their stall here at the secret merchant market. Hence, when Donald intended to bring Lin Li and the others upstairs to the next floor, above, Lin Li politely declined. Thank you, Master Donald, but please go ahead with Prince Tori. I intend to take my servants for a tour around here. Donald also knew that everyone had their own secrets, and he had already done enough by bringing Lin Li and the others there. If he followed them everywhere they went, he would come off as annoying. The purpose of most patrons of the secret merchant market was to find and buy some treasures. No one would be willing to let others find out which treasures they had gotten immediately after they bought them. Hence, after Lin Li turned him down, Donald didn't seem too disappointed, and instead politely said, "All right then, take your time, masterfully. Tori and I will not disturb you anymore. I hope you can find something that you like." Donald and Tori soon left, while Lin Li brought Connorus and Angelano to start browsing slowly through the goods available at each store owned by a secret merchant. The secret merchant market was much different from the Gift of the Sea, where there was basically a variety of resources available for sale. The goods peddled at the secret merchant market were usually rare items. However, one point to note was that the authenticity of the goods at the secret merchant market was not guaranteed or regulated, so one would have to have a discerning eye in order to purchase authentic goods. If one were to buy a counterfeit item, they would have to blame it on their bad luck. The secret merchant would not offer a refund, nor would the Secret Merchants Alliance entertain such matters. For instance, Lin Li saw a replica of the Titan Dragon gun at a stall owned by a secret merchant, which had an identical appearance to the true Titan Dragon guns according to the myths and legends. It also contained some power of lightning. However, the most fake detail about it was that its size was only twice or thrice of that of an ordinary spear used by humans. For the Titans, it was probably only akin to a toothpick. There were also some who sold treasure maps that were claimed to be of the mausoleum of the great monarch of the Sea clan. Although Lin Li wasn't certain that the map was fake, he reckoned that no one would dare to unearth the mausoleum of the great monarch of the Sea clan even if it was authentic, because the Sea clan wasn't extinct yet. Besides, even if the map was true, the secret merchants could have gone to explore the mausoleum themselves, as that would bring them more money than selling the map. Simply put, the secret merchant market was like an antique market, where the goods might be authentic or not. If one ended up buying a counterfeit item, they could only blame it on their poor judgment. However, on the other hand, the secret merchants would tend to make mistakes at times too. Hence, it could be said that it was all up to the discretion of the buyer and seller. Even if they suffered a loss, they shouldn't blame anyone for it. Of course, there were only very few counterfeit goods. Even though the secret merchants were all wearing masks and weren't afraid that their reputation would be ruined, The Secret Merchants Alliance wasn't willing to tarnish theirs because of the counterfeit goods. Although the Secret Merchants Alliance did not make it mandatory for the secret merchants to sell only authentic goods, they had a standard evaluation criteria of their own. If the secret merchants went overboard, being kicked out of the alliance would be considered a light consequence. For example, there were definitely no counterfeit goods in the cabin on the second floor, where Donald and Prince Tori went to, as the goods peddled there were obviously of superior quality compared to those outside. The secret merchants who were allowed to set up their stalls on the second floor were not only capable, but more importantly, they were credible and trustworthy, to a certain extent. This time, there was quite a large number of guests who were invited to the secret merchant market. There were about a few thousand of them. Some of them headed straight to the cabin of the second floor as soon as they entered, just like Donald and the others. However, most of them started browsing slowly on the first floor, just like Lin Li. Fortunately, the hall on the first floor was extremely wide and spacious, thus providing ample room to prevent overcrowding. Besides, they were all figures of status, so they wouldn't be so disgraceful as to wander around indiscriminately and squeeze their way through the crowd. Among the guests, some of them were naturally Lin Li's acquaintances, such as Prince Jonathan of the Felon Kingdom, Prince Jeremiah of the Leaden Kingdom, Archbishop Inglos of the Brilliant Shrine, and High Priest Sendros of the Darkness Shrine. Unlike Lin Li, who had only been in Anral for a few years, they were all bigwigs of high status, who had attended the sea market several times before. Hence, it wasn't strange for them to become the regular guests of the Secret Merchants Alliance. Even the representatives of the forces of the Breezy Plains, like Joseph and Claus, were no strangers to the secret merchant market. What more those bigwigs? After all, the secret merchant market was not held only in the Gilded Kingdom, as similar markets were also held regularly on the mainland, though of a lower standard. Although Lin Li saw some acquaintances, he did not go over to greet them, nor did they approach him. They merely nodded at each other in greeting. They all knew that the secret merchant market would be open for 6 or 7 hours at most, so they might not have enough time to really browse through everything there. Thus, they didn't want to waste their own and others' time exchanging pleasantries, which could be done at other occasions. Hey, President Flick, you're here too. However, not everyone was self-aware enough to understand that logic. Since it was the sea merchant market, of course the famous Cantori from the Gilded Kingdom had to be present. There was also another person whom Lin Li was familiar with standing next to Cantori, and that was Harquis of the Octopus Clan, who had previously tried to compete with Lin Li in inscription. The last time Cantori met Lin Li in the market, he claimed it to be a coincidence, but actually, it was all part of his premeditated plan. Otherwise, how could he have possibly met Lin Li by coincidence in such a large market? Unfortunately, Cantori did not achieve the outcome that he wanted the other time, because he didn't expect Harquis to keep his cool even after having his Mageth marred by Lin Li's ink. However, it was truly a coincidence this time because Cantori really did not expect to actually meet Lin Li again in the secret merchant market. Although he wanted to use the power of the Octopus Clan to deal with Lin Li, he knew that it wouldn't be a good idea to make his plan and animosity too obvious. Just as he was fretting over how he could look for Lin Li again, he stumbled upon Lin Li by coincidence, which truly made him overjoyed. Hence, when Cantori saw Lin Li, he immediately came over with Harquis. In his opinion, Harquis chose not to settle scores with Lin Li previously only because Lin Li left too soon. He reckoned that Harquis would probably lose his temper this time. However, Cantori only focused on creating trouble for Lin Li now, and thus didn't notice the paleness of Harquis' face. Harquis was now extremely terrified of meeting Lin Li, and it was as if the admonishments of his father and the elders were still ringing in his ears. However, he could not bring himself to suck up to Lin Li, and thus merely hoped to live each day as it passed and avoid Lin Li as much as possible. However, given the relationship between him and Lin Li, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and follow Cantori. Oh, I heard that there is a secret merchant market here, so I came to take a look. After taking a quick glance at Cantori, Lin Li replied to him indifferently, and then turned around to look at the items sold at the stores at the side. In Cantori's opinion, he was smart to have never genuinely fallen out with Lin Li. Although they were both aware of the animosity between them, they wouldn't behave like archenemies until they really fell out with each other. That way, he could continue to approach Lin Li, and then look for opportunities to make Lin Li fall into his traps. He wouldn't behave like Delano, who had gone against Lin Li as soon as they met. Now, Delano didn't even dare to appear in front of Lin Li. Although Lin Li did not deal with Cantori, it was merely because he didn't take Cantori seriously at all. However, that also meant that Cantori's strategy was still somewhat a bit useful. If Delano had been the one who came over to talk to Lin Li, he would have already been thrown far away. Seeing that Lin Li did not pay attention to him, Cantori was resentful and infuriated, but he didn't show it. Instead, He sounded a little regretful as he said, President Fulik, you probably do not know this, but you ruined a master-level Mageth with the ink that you splashed the other time. It's such a pity. If you had simply admitted defeat at that time, you might have been able to befriend Harquis, and Harquis probably wouldn't have minded giving that master-level Mageth to you. On the one hand, Cantori was accusing Lin Li of being a sore loser, and on the other hand, he was telling Lin Li that he had missed an opportunity to befriend Harquis. Of course, he was not feeling sorry for Lin Li, but rather he wanted to see Lin Li's remorseful expression. Although he had no way to make the Gilded Kingdom and the Tower of Dusk go to war or trample all over Lin Li, he could use such a method to deal a blow to his enemy, and at least get some happiness out of doing so. In Anral, there were very few inscribers apart from the Octopus clan. Masters of inscription were even rarer. Hence, for every individual and force, getting to know a true master of inscription was an extremely rare opportunity. Cantori had been to the Breezy Plains as a special envoy. Hence, he knew that the Tower of Dusk had only been established for a few years now. A newly established force like theirs would be able to save a few years of struggling if they had the help of a master of inscription. He reckoned that Lin Li would definitely be filled with remorse and regret if he knew that he had missed the opportunity to get acquainted with a master of inscription. However, after hearing Cantori's words, Harquis felt incredibly ashamed and started blushing before Lin Li even reacted. Yes, even the Octopus clan would tend to feel embarrassed at times. Harquis was well aware that even the Grand Elder Hayes was in awe of Lin Li's attainments in inscription. Hence, Harquis was actually far inferior. Harquis still remembered his father's and the elders' admonishments. Missed the opportunity to befriend me. The Octopus clan is desperately trying to befriend President Fulik. However, on the one hand, Harquis did not want to embarrass his friend Cantori, and on the other hand, he really could not swallow his pride to say something nice to Lin Li. Harquis was not that thick-skinned to agree with Cantori, but he also couldn't bring himself to suck up to Lin Li. Therefore, when Cantori was about to say something else, Harquis secretly pulled his good friend Cantori over in hopes that he would not say anything embarrassing again. Unfortunately, Cantori did not know that the ink, which did not seem to mean much to him, had actually shocked the Octopus clan, which was one of the 7 hegemonies. Feeling Harquis tugging at him, Cantori thought that Harquis was intending to teach Lin Li a lesson himself, which was exactly what he wanted.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.